couple of house items. Should there be some type of emergency where we need to evacuate, we go out that door, around the corner, out the,
We planning on having an emergency?
no, we're not. We always did that at UPS. If there was an emergency, you had to notify everybody. You pick the
We're
exit.
not jumping out the window.
No, no.
It's a new thing.
Also, we'd remind everybody of the code of conduct policy established by the ownership. We ask everyone to treat other individuals in a civil manner with respect and courtesy. That also extends to electronic communications. So anytime we're on property, we ask people to treat other people with respect. Also, when anybody from the audience is speaking or online, if you would announce your name and your unit number, we'd appreciate that. So with that, John will establish quorum.
Very well. Well, yes, Mr. President, I can say, yes, there is a quorum present with actually all board members in the room.
Okay.
I'll go on. Board members were properly notified of the meeting through a posting in the lodge lobby and online. And these documents were also posted, well, they were posted in those places for owners to also become aware of them. So that was done properly. You want to move on to approval of minutes?
Yes.
The board members will recall that a couple of weeks ago, I sent out 2 sets of minutes. One was for the special meeting, or excuse me, the regular meeting of February 3rd, 2023, and the other one was for the special board meeting that occurred on February 20th, 2023. I presume that all of you have had, they're also on the table. Presume you've all had a chance to read them. And I would make a motion that the board approve these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we want to welcome everybody here.
Vote.
Oh,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried 7-0. Welcome everybody here. It was a challenging winter here, I understand. We had lots of things going on. We blew out the snow removal budget. And we're starting to see some of the things coming around the property as far as some of the landscaping upgrades that we still are continuing to do. And we hope that everybody's enjoying those. So with that, we will go ahead. We have Jennifer Wade here from American Family Insurance, and we will go ahead and let her speak.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Jennifer, American Family Insurance. So I cover the Master Association for Tameron. So, you know, the buildings and all of that fun stuff, and quite a few owners. I recognize a few faces. And then I know you had a few questions that you wanted me to address, and maybe what would you like me to cover?
Hey, Jennifer, would you mind coming over here, and that way you'd be on camera?
Oh, sorry.
on camera.
Oh, gosh. Don't tell me that. So I know one of the topics was, you know, increases in insurance prices. And so, you know, a little bit of insight on the industry, and specifically in Colorado. So Colorado definitely seeing some challenges in insurance, especially on the property side, you know, with continuing challenges with wildfire, you know, increased in cost, right? Every claim's costing more because of the increase in construction prices. And so, you know, across the industry, we're definitely seeing some increases on pretty much any type of property policy. So whether it's the condo owner up to, you know, homeowner to, you know, associations and larger complexes. You know, some of the bigger challenges we have in our specific area, of course, is our high wildfire risk. You know, pretty much all of Durango, Bayfield, kind of our whole surrounding area is considered a high wildfire area, which does impact our rates. Kind of a little bit more particular to, you know, Tamron and condos, we're definitely still seeing increases in condo owners policies. And really what's driving that actually is the most common claim on a condo policy is water damage. Whether it's from a busted pipe, from an upstairs neighbor, water damage continues to be one of the largest frequent claims on condo owners, and that's probably what's driving up condo owners specifically more so than, you know, some other factors. A couple other pieces that, you know, you probably are seeing, no matter which carrier with, is, you know, every year your policy renews, you know, the building gets older, which is one piece of the rating factor. Another part that, especially like with American Family, in construction costs have moved so much, right? And so every property policy has what they call inflation protection. And so even on a condo owner's policy, you know, you're usually seeing that dwelling coverage move a little bit to try to keep up with the construction index. I've been doing this 18 years. Previous years, you know, for most cases, it's maybe 2 to 6% that we'd see on the construction index. Well, that construction index is dramatically higher. And so what you're seeing is that dwelling coverage, instead of maybe increasing a couple thousand for that inflation protection, we're seeing some big shifts to try to keep up with construction costs. So if you're seeing some bigger changes, you know, on your policy, that would be something you might want to take a look at. What was my coverage last year? What's the coverage this year? Because you're probably seeing some bigger jumps in coverages, which of course impacts premiums. And you've probably seen, like I said, I've been doing this 18 years and we've biggest construction index inflation that we've seen in a long time. So those are a couple pieces that maybe can help you understand what's going on with industry. There's even a lot of legislative talk in Colorado because of the continuing challenges, especially with some of the carriers pulling out of Colorado completely due to the wildfire risks. Marshall Fire, we all knew was kind of a big one. They're kind of just really starting to get the numbers. There's probably over $28 million in losses from that single fire. Which is coming to be like one of the largest fire losses we've had in Colorado in quite some time. And that's, you know, across all carriers. So that's definitely impacting what carriers are doing, what they're doing with rates, you know, especially in our home state, unfortunately. That help answer maybe some of the questions?
It does. Can you speak to roof replacement and how that would impact our?
Sure. So roof replacement, so, you know, roofing is of course part of pretty much any homeowner's property. So not necessarily impacting condo owners, but of course the actual association. So of course, the newer the roof, the better, right? Because the age is usually part of that factor. Just because the older the roof, of course, more likely something's going to be able to, you know, wind's going to come in and it can damage an older roof easier than it can a newer roof typically. So we kind of expect as the roof gets older, the claims propensity are going to increase. So that will definitely should help out, as well as the material tends to be a factor as well, because again, how vulnerable is it to, you know, claims? Metal, of course, is one of the, you know, lower rated items, but not if you're on the east slope of Colorado where there's hail. Right, so out here, it depends on where you're at. But roofing is definitely a piece. I know you guys have been probably looking at taking care of some roofing here soon, so that will definitely be something that should help improve overall, you know, factors behind the scenes.
Jennifer, a question came up last couple of days with all the, over this past winter and what would we have, 26, 27 roof leaks, 25 roof leaks. Would our insurance cover a roof replacement? And I immediately said, probably not. Can you speak to that and maybe clarify that?
Great question. So easiest thing when you think of insurance, it has to be a sudden event, right? If it's just a matter of that the roof is deteriorated and it's leaking, that's wear and tear and maintenance and the joys of home or property ownership. Now, if it was due to like hail damage or a windstorm ripped it off, or a lot of, you know, we had a lot of ice stand claims, you know, where the, you know, the ice gets in and it's not actually the roof that's usually getting damaged, but basically it forms the ice and the ice comes in through the building, through the structure. And then of course, once it gets inside, starts melting and then causing leaks on the interior. And so, you know, those are sudden events. So it really depends on what the cause is as far as whether that leak is gonna be covered. If it's just that, it's leaking, I mean, typically not. Has to be because of something.
So if we can document that it was dam damage, then we can have an insurance claim for that.
If it's like ice dams, weight of ice, snow or sleet is definitely a covered item.
But if it was pooling as a result of an ice dam, is that an insurance claim?
It probably, I mean, that'd be a claims adjuster question, but I mean, if it's due to ice, like I said, ice is definitely acts of nature, weather is a covered event, so. That could be part of that, it's gonna probably be ice dam plus the water from the ice dam. So kind of like where the ice dam comes inside, that damage coming inside is still considered part of the ice dam that's technically. On
So
the
what kind
outside.
of evidence would you need to document that?
I mean, we gotta be able to at least point some fingers to what caused it. Yeah, be able to identify if it's covered.
I have a question.
Mhm.
You said, you usually see inflationary adjustments of 2 to 6%, and now they're the biggest you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Do you have a percentage range
Gosh.
for
And
what you're seeing that makes you say the largest you've ever seen?
I mean, and so they don't give us the percentages and it's varying so much depending on the property, but. I mean, usually like on a regular homeowner's policy, maybe we'd see the coverage on a home jump up maybe 10,000, 20,000 on that home. We're seeing jumps of 50,000, 75,000. So it's dramatically, and of course, it's all proportional to the dwelling limit. But we're seeing those dwelling limits jump, dramatically, to try to keep up. And the reality is they need to, based on the current construction costs. We're doing tons of reviews with customers, checking on, what is their current coverage per square foot? Is it keeping up with our projections? And so a lot of those, it's been having to keep up, but it's been jumping quite a bit. If you have $1 million home, we're probably seeing almost $100,000 jump in coverage.
Another question, back to ice dams.
Yeah.
So there's the damage that could occur to your structure outside, but if there's an ice dam and it leaks down and it destroys a roof on the interior, is that also something that would be replaced because of ice dam damage?
Great question. So this is where we actually have to go back to the CCNRs as far as where the boundaries of coverage start and stop. So it's actually, the insurance policies never actually say where it starts and stops. It's actually the association CCNRs, it tells us where to start and stop it. And we just have to make sure we have enough coverage on both sides, right? So with Tamarone, and I actually, just because of a lot of these questions and, Joe had reached out about some of the repeat issues, had our claim specialist that covers commercial complexes read your CCNRs just to make sure we weren't missing anything, just to try to reconfirm. And he was really impressed because you guys have very clear CCNRs. Which makes it makes it really easy in that sense. And your CCNRs is that anything that's on the interior of a unit falls onto the owner. And that's regardless of what the cause is, whether it's from the unit above you, whether it's from the roof. The association takes care of the building and the exterior, anything that starts getting inside those drywalls and inside each little unit, that is where the owner's policy kicks in.
Okay, so that's a question that I wanted to ask, and I want to drive this point home. So, you're saying that our CCNRs, which all insurance companies lean on in a condo association
Yeah, that's almost.
to
the first thing
determine
they're gonna-
who's responsible.
Yeah.
And you're saying they're clear.
We've been, reading it that way for quite some time,
Yeah.
so that's the way we've been interpreting it.
Yet,
Yeah.
yet we continuously have issues with owners with various policies by various carriers. One comes to mind, and you know who I'm talking about, that denies the claim to the owner and wants to throw it back on the HOA.
And this is.
And that's on the inside, something's wrong on the inside of the unit, the carpet got wet, the furniture got wet, who knows what else. Then they want to drive it back on the HOA and deny the claim on the owner's policy.
So,
How do we fight that? If our DCCRs are clear, how do we fight that?
and so, I mean, the downside, so this is where, the downside of how associations work is that it comes down to interpretations. And so that is the challenge when, we have, now, like I said, our claims, special, like I said, I had to reread it just because, we had some changes in claims, and so I was like, hey, can we just make sure that we've been on the same track, that we're guiding people correctly, and he was really impressed. He thought it was some of the clearest language that he's seen in a long time. I can speak, I cover a lot of associations, and we have some that are atrocious. I mean, they're so vague that it's, who knows how the claim's gonna turn out. But
Jennifer, and Joe, I want to make it clear that when you talked about, you know who, I mean, you did not mean her.
No, no, we never have a problem when it's American Family, because for instance, if a homeowner has American Family as their policy, it's really never a problem, because
we're on the same
we're
page.
covered, we're on the same page. It's the
Appreciate it.
other insurance carriers.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just didn't want it misinterpreted by somebody who might not understand.
Yeah. And there's one in particular, and it's actually a company I use down in Arizona, that continuously has denied claims just like this,
And
not just for water damage, for other things as well.
The only thing we can do is, I mean, this is where, I'd be always be more than willing to, try to speak to the claims adjusters. I mean, really, they're gonna try to argue certain points, but, we basically have to, point them back to it specifically, and like that it. Even, we went through, there's several points and several reiterations and confirmations, there's talks about that it doesn't cover interior. Talks about the owner's responsible for the interior, so there's kind of multiple points where it's supposed to reconfirm it. Best I can say is maybe, I could even check with my claims adjuster, see if we can go through and maybe highlight some of those points, so that if you ever get those scenarios, that maybe we say, hey, here's what you need to be looking at here specifically, so we can help point out and really, say, hey, here's a language that says it's not, to try to help guide them. And sometimes there are some companies, I'll say, not every company pulls up the CCNRs, they should be, that's how associations work, but some will just, or if it's a claims adjuster not as familiar with how condo associations work, I mean, we're no different. American Family, we're constantly getting new people, and I've even had sometimes step in and like, wait, whoa, no, that's not how those CCNRs work, they should be going this route, and so. Best we can just try to give them some guidance, but that might be something that I can get our claims manager to go through and just kind of highlight, so you can kind of.
Gentleman in the blue.
Yeah, Gary Gustafson, 704. Did we make any claims this winter on any of the roof leaks?
Not for the.
So we really don't know what adjusting would do if we came out and looked at any of the leaks that we had.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Did we make any claims on the roof?
No.
This winter? So we've not had an adjuster out to check any of the damages that we had done.
No.
Adjusters
Don't get involved until a claim's open, and even in that case, a lot of people say, well, is an adjuster going to come out and inspect it? And a lot of times the adjusters, don't have, usually they're gonna go out with the roofing inspection. Unless it's some really big stuff where they need a local or complex, or they need a local independent adjuster.
It's okay.
We had ice dam damage this winter. At this point in time, we wouldn't know whether it's claimable or not. Right.
I mean, that's where I'm not a roofing specialist, so I'd say, we need to get, a roofer to come out and, assess the roof. They're better experts on knowing, what different damages look like and being able to connect the dots. And
Bottom line is the HOA would have to file a claim with American Family to get the ball rolling, to get an adjuster to look at it and see whether there was any coverage. Is that right?
And then they're gonna usually say, okay, get us an inspection, and so we can assess it.
Along those lines, we had a question that was, are the owners responsible for damage on the inside of their unit due to damage on the exterior of the building?
Yes.
Yes.
Because nothing.
That's
on
the thing we've always
Yeah.
run into a problem with, is either the owner or their insurance company wants to point to, well, it's
Yeah.
your roof, the roof leaked and caused me problems, so you fix it. But our DCCRs, like Jennifer
Yeah.
says, are clear. They state that any damage on the inside of a unit, it is the owner's responsibility. And I can take this all the way back to the 15 years ago. I owned a lodge unit. There was a leak in a fire sprinkler line. I had substantial damage in my unit. I made the claim on State Farm, my company, and they paid it. Paid for everything inside my unit.
And I'd say one
So
of
now
the
that
ways.
you've disclosed,
Now that I've disclosed who that insurance company.
using State Farm needs to think about.
Dan, did you have a question? Okay.
Maybe one way to clarify, I think that when I was talking for.
Subtle that was.
One other way to maybe like kind of just help really kind of reconfirm is, a lot of times on claims, it's both parties on associations, especially with how your, walls in coverage, as they call it. If it was a big fire, the association's gonna be claiming it, owners are gonna be claiming it. It's no different when it's a roof versus fire versus any other building damage. It's still two parties that tend to have to, take care of their side of that equation.
So back to ice dams.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm not a roofing expert or a contractor. by
You may
any
not be
means,
able to answer this question, but one question leads to another.
Yeah.
So if ice dams are something that we can file a claim for, if there is extraordinary damage as the result of clearing an ice dam that was out of normal, would the damage that was caused by clearing that ice dam be covered?
Great question. There's a very big technicality that comes there. If it's because the contractors were banging away at it, that's not the proper way to be taking care of ice dams. That is on the contractor for bad workmanship.
But if the ice was holding onto the shingles and to get it off, how do you draw that line?
So there are proper ways to get rid of ice dams. Like I said, I'm not a total roofer pro, but there's basically steam machines that they can use so that it loosens it up versus just yanking off chunks of the roof. Or, you're asking great questions. We've had tons of these come up over this last, that last few months for all sorts of properties. And we've had all variances, and we've had some where contractors were literally banging on it with hammers. That's not, you're causing damage, more damage to the roof than taking care of that ice dam. And that's actually not the proper way to take care of an ice dam. Now, and again, if it's contractor, there could be workmanship issues. But even like I had one recently that, ice dams don't typically damage the roof. And so it's the damage that results on the inside. That is where the issue really is. So it's not usually damaging the roof. The damage from the roof comes from removal, and a lot of that is usually poor workmanship, poor removal processes. Which would fall back on the contractor.
Remind us of our deductible, it's 10 grand.
We have a steep deductible.
So,
10,000,
It's 10. That's what-
yeah.
except for
Unless-
certain
Wind or hail is the 5%.
5%.
That for winter stuff would be the 10,000.
Or western slope, so that's not so bad.
Thanks. for
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah, John Mills, 202. I'm curious if you think that the inflationary increase that you're talking about, is there any kind of forecast that you guys think this is going to be a continuing trend for, the next several years? And, I'm just curious what your perspectives are on that.
Great question. Really, it's up, it's a matter of the market. We're still seeing huge, obviously I'm not on the contracting side, but any claim we have, we're having endless delays still with materials, labor shortages. Just the impacts and rolling impacts of COVID and all the shortages. We're still experiencing every day. I can't tell you how many times even car repairs, nothing is moving at the pace that it was before. And of course, because scarcity, right? They're charging more than they ever could for any kind of repairs, for lumber, for materials. So, it's, I would say at this point, just because we still are seeing such long-term impacts, it's probably going to be a few years before those stabilize, but there's also rumors of, we also have, vendors and contractors are getting used to being able to charge a lot more and have a warranted reason of why they're charging these prices. So are they going to just suddenly stop charging that later when costs go down, or are they going to take the profit? So, it's kind of who knows with that one, but for the next few years, I would expect to see it kind of, continue to stay pretty high, at least until we get past some of these shortages and inflated prices, which hopefully come back down.
So much of it depends on what catastrophes we have around the country.
Yeah, Marshall Fire didn't help.
Hurricane season kills us.
So, mhm.
Okay, well, Jennifer, thank you very much for coming out.
You're welcome.
It's very informative.
Absolutely. If you have any questions on any type of property, whether you're an owner, you have other homes, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm licensed here, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, and Texas. So firmly believe in educating and helping you make better decisions. So even if that's not with my company. So thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Oh,
One last question.
Yep.
Online. This insurance sounds like studs in versus studs out. HOA covers studs out, homeowner is responsible for studs in. This is different than what a typical condo insurance policy is.
It's actually
No.
that's pretty common condo policy. So there's two types out there. There's what you guys have, and then there's other ones that they call upgrades only. And that's where the association is responsible for, I like to say 99.9% of it, unless you change things out. Or you upgrade it, but the condo owners, walls in policy or studs in policy, same language. Owners responsible for the interior, that's probably still the more typical condo policy when you go to your agent and say, I need a condo policy, that's typically what they're writing it for. A lot of them actually aren't used to the other version, the upgrades version, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks again.
thank you, everybody. Have a great Friday. Have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the review of the financials.
Gary, you wanna put the financial report up?
Sure.
Bags up here though, so anybody want to see that?
Hey, Andy, contact information on the website.
Okay.
I'll forward it to you now too.
Okay, so this financial report is gonna cover from first of the year through the end of last month, April 30th. Just some highlights on the, this is the balance sheet we're looking at the moment. You want to scroll down a little bit? Yeah, down. Yeah, I know. Okay. All right, that's good right there. Okay, so if you look at accounts 103, 107, 108, this is the sum of our reserves. Sitting right now at 802,781.78. If you paid attention to the year-end report from December 31st, that's down a little bit. This is not anything to be concerned about. It's not because we took money out and spent it on something. This is a function of the current year's budget where we pull X amount of dollars out of the reserves and put more back in, and we just haven't caught up with the putting more back in. The target for this year will be on this year's budget, the target for our reserves is going to be just under 950,000 balance. So we will be going up 90,000 from year end last year. Pointing out just a couple of things. Accounts receivable looks a little bit high. That was as again, this is as of April 30th. Some straggling HOA payments that were due on April 30th didn't hit when this report was generated. So that number is down between $50,000 and $70,000 now, and more what we're used to seeing. We've got a number of units that are I shouldn't say a number. There's a few units that are in long-term arrears on their assessments, and that's what contributes to that accounts receivable balance. But most of those units are on the market or pending sale, and as soon as those units sell, we'll collect those funds that those owners been behind on. Scroll down some more, Gary. Fixed assets 150, that's all the common areas in this building, plus units 110, 114, and 115 that are owned by the association. Go ahead, Gary, scroll down some more. Account 240 deferred revenue. I always get asked what this is, so I'll get the answer out there ahead of time. On a month-to-month basis, this number decrements by about $200,000, and then it jumps back up to 600,000 again at the beginning of every quarter when the billings go out. We don't recognize the revenue from assessments on a quarterly basis. We recognize them on a monthly basis. So that right now represents May and June assessments, which will be coming in. That's what that number is. If you want to scroll down some more, Gary. If you look at net income, it's a negative number. You're going to see that a lot on this report at this point in time in the year. And that's primarily due to the fact, like Rick said, we blew up the snow removal budget, which you'll see on the next page when we start to do the income statement. Like I said, we'll have a number of negative numbers on this report due to that, but I think over the course of the rest of the year, we'll catch up a little bit. The board has identified some areas that were designated for spending on this year's budget that will defer. And so hopefully we'll tighten the belt a little bit and get ourselves closer to a break even for the year. You want to go to the next page, Barry? You're gonna have to figure out how to shrink that down. Can you? Yeah, I need to see it. All right. I guess that's good enough. All right. So this first section of the income and expense statements is our income. Just pointing out some items that may be a little bit out of plan. Account 404 is showing that maintenance revenues are running behind plan. This is mostly because we're just seeing fewer maintenance requests. Maybe that's because over the winter, there's fewer people here. That should pick up in the summer. And this is maintenance requests that are billed to owners. So that's where the revenue comes from when they ask for work to be done inside their units. Let's see. Commercial space rental for 12. Just for information, that's Sotheby's, the real estate office, and Linda, is it Linda, the hairdresser?
Yeah.
Pays us for the use of space in this building. So we get a little bit of revenue from that. I think the reason that number is running behind is because Sotheby's payment wasn't made yet, and that was $600 for the quarter. They pay quarterly, correct? Or is it monthly?
It's 300 a quarter,
300 a quarter. Okay.
and they're gonna pay, it's probably already here,
Okay.
the 600 they owe for the first 2 quarters.
For the first 2 quarters. So that would put that one back a little bit over plan. Laundry machines are way down, and that's usually because we get a lot more money out of those in the summertime and when more people are here. So overall, the total income, which is lagging just a little bit because of the maintenance revenue, should run close by the end of the year. So we should be good there. You want to scroll down to expenses, Gary? Can you get that to fit so that it's? Yeah, I like this idea. Can you all see that well enough? Okay. I'd rather be able to see the whole page. Running down at legal fees, 512, we're way under. Boy, I like seeing that because there's been years where we've had so many legal fees. I don't see a lot coming up. We do have a couple of contract renewals that are on the horizon for later this year, so we'll see some spending there, but we've been knocking down the legal fees budget every year for the last couple of years, so it's a good trend. Scrolling down, Gary, I don't see anything else there that's of note. I'll ask the questions at the end of the time, and we can come back to any of those if you want. Administrative salaries is running behind plan. And this is primarily due to a management restructure, office restructure we had earlier in the year. I think Rick sent out an email, so you all know about that. Different restructuring and responsibilities. of the three people sitting to my left. And so there was some cost savings there because one of our people decided to reduce their responsibilities. So that will run under plan for the year. So there's a bit of savings to go against snow removal pickup. Operations 610, BHP contract labor, that's Greg Petit and his guys that are responsible for all the maintenance around the property. And you can see that's running right on plan. So these guys, how long have you guys been here now? About a year and a half?
Just right at a year.
Right at a year. So after about a year of figuring out how we're gonna merge their operation into ours and get things done, we've got a pretty good handle on what our costs are gonna be going forward with them. Building maintenance is running a little under plan, as is 612 and 613. Both of these are offsets to account 404 above the revenue account for maintenance. So when you're not charging owners for the labor in doing any repairs inside their unit, you're also not buying parts and buying any outside contractors. So that's kind of an offset on that. 614 is a new account we put in after dropping the big cast iron pipe replacement project that we determined was going to be way too expensive and way too difficult to accomplish. We're managing cast iron leaks as they come along, and so now we're budgeting for that and running a little bit over plan on that, but so far that looks pretty good. Snow removal. So we budgeted $85,000. We spent $233,000. It's a big shocker. 2023, if not the most snow ever in a year in these parts, it's at least the most snow in the last 20 years. What did we have? 200 and some % of average, something like that.
Let's say 233.
Yeah, a % of average. Though I took a look back, 2005, 2008, 2019, and 2023 this year were the highest snowfall years of the past 20. 2019 was only about 175% of average, so that tells you how bad this one was. While we way overspent and our budget is suffering, our budget performance is suffering because of it, we're not in as bad a shape as some of our neighbors. Cascade up the road, they had to special assess their owners twice this winter for snow removal, for excessive snow removal costs. Wildcat Canyon condos down south of town, they special assessed theirs, and there may have been others that we don't know about. Those are the two we know about. We managed to get through the winter without having to do that, and I think we'll be okay going forward. Like I said, we'll just tighten the belt and keep things as close in line as we can. Next page, Gary. Not too much else to talk about on the 600 accounts, the operations expenses. We did start the lodge exterior maintenance account 641. We started that early. The guys have been touching up all the staining on the lodge. And they'll get to the other three areas later on this summer and into the fall. So right now our total 600 operations account is way over budget, and of course most of that is snow removal. 675, I'll mention that also. That number will run under budget for the year. We had three company vehicles, the white pickup truck and the two silver Nissan Rogues. We sold the Nissan Rogues. You'll see the effect of that on the reserves page when I get over there. So our maintenance and insurance on the vehicles, expenses will run less for the rest of the year. Personnel salaries, this is our, we have, as I said, we have BHP, who's our primary maintenance, does the primary maintenance around the property. We do have 4 full-time maintenance staff people. I'm sorry, 4 staff people, 3 full-time and 1 seasonal. They're all full-time, right? The seasonal guy, yes, but the one is seasonal, so he's only here during the summer. So adding the seasonal guy and moving 1 guy up from part-time to full-time first quarter of this year, even though we're running under budget there, that should catch up some, and we should run closer to budget towards the end of the year. 700 utilities, water and sewers running under, that's typical. Water and sewers running under, that's typical because we haven't started irrigating yet. Irrigation water, we use a lot of it, it's expensive. And so over the course of the summer, that'll catch up and pass until we get into the fall again and slow down the irrigation. We should be right on budget by the end of the year on that one. Satellite TVs running a little bit over. I don't think we ever figured out what that was.
We paid 5 months.
We paid 5 months.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay. All right, so we're a month ahead on payments there. Electricity is right on, which is amazing. Electricity's always been a big old moving target. Trying to figure out how much we spend on that over the course of a year. So it's right on. Internet, telephone service right on, refuse service right on. Again, negative numbers at the bottom of the page there, and much more to say about that. We're planning for it to get better towards the end of the year. Capital, Gary. Okay. So we cut way back on capital projects this year in the budget just to try to rein in the HOA fee increase we had to implement. And some of these items that you see up there are ones that I indicated earlier. The board has decided to defer or eliminate in hopes of offsetting some of the snow removal costs. 809, I think Mark has decided that we can do away with that one. We are doing the planting beds, although I think the board was looking to reduce that cost by some. I don't know if we'll be able to get there. Is that, Mark, do you think we'll?
That was reduced very small amount. We
Couple
struck-
$1,000, I
yeah, we
think.
struck the-
Yeah.
The one we struck 100% was 809.
Yeah, 809. And I think you also talked about trying to come in under on the unplanned capital expenses too,
Yeah,
830.
I'll talk a little bit to water in section.
All right, good enough. There is some money in there under unplanned capital expenses, and this relates back to one of these insurance questions. We had one unit that had pretty bad water damage from this year, and it went back to a repair that was supposed to have happened last year and apparently didn't. This owner had a number of furnishing items, artwork, furniture and stuff like that had to be replaced. And it wasn't cheap stuff. It came, where'd it come from? Artesanos downtown. If you've ever been in that store, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we didn't know where else to put that. We had to pay for it because of the dispute with him and his insurance company. We didn't know where else to put that money. We may move it to another account later, but right now for visibility, that's where it is. That's $7,200 is what we paid to settle that problem. As is the case with most capital projects, it's too early in the year to really evaluate because we don't tend to do the capital projects until the summer and the fall. Winter's just too much snow on the ground. Going over to the reserves page, Gary. Okay, so this is where the top part of this is the actual this year's activity on reserves. We have interest income, which will be higher than normal because of rising CD rates as we're renewing our laddered CDs. That is the majority of our reserves. We're seeing rates that are up in the 3 to 4% range now, whereas 2 years ago, they were in the 0.5% or lower range. So we're benefiting from that. The unit rental revenues is the 2 units that we rent, unit 110 and 114. Yeah. And that's revenue we get from those units. Capital contributions from sales. This is the one-time fee that a new owner pays when they buy a unit. 2 quarters dues, 2 quarters HOA fees, and that money goes right into reserves as a contribution to reserves for a new owner. And then we sold the 2 cars. We didn't get as much money as we thought we were going to get for them. That's the net 8,200. We sold the units sold the cars for $35,000. The pair, one guy downtown bought them, right? Yeah, but then we had to pay off the loan. The loan was $27K. So that's the net. That's the net we got. We were hoping to get more than that. Perhaps if we'd have sold them a little sooner before the market for used cars softened a little bit. It was strong about a year ago. If we'd have gotten it sold then, we might have made some more money on it. That's what it is. Down there on the bottom, that shows you where so the beginning, I told you what we had in reserves. The beginning balance was 858. And with the puts and takes, we'll end up with, the plan is to end up with $947,000 in reserves by year end. And the last page is the service and security desk. The rental occupancy over the course of the winter is a little softer than we expected. So we're a little bit down on the admin fees. That number, that's 72, 77.99 there. That's actually as of May 24th, when we went over this with the team, that number is actually up around 16,000 now. It's the accounting for those. We collect $30 a month or $30 a night at the front desk for each rental unit, for each rental night from the rental guest. We turn 27.25 of that over to Glacier Club, because what that's for is the use of the pool and fitness facility and access to the golf course and such for the rental guests. So we only get to keep a couple dollars of it. And that's what that number represents. And the collecting of that money and then the paying Glacier and then putting it in our account. There's a big lag in there. It's up to like 2 months lag, isn't it? Yeah. So
in the amount collected, we're approaching the higher end for resort fees across the country. So
yeah.
It's harder for us to charge much more and still remain competitive as far as resort fees.
Unfortunately, Glacier they've gone into the mode of just increasing that by 3% every year, no matter what. Now, inflation the last couple of years has been higher, so we don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's a conversation we probably need to have.
How do we know that we're on the higher end? Do we have any empirical evidence that we can provide to Glacier?
Yeah.
Well, there are some higher ones. I mean, Joe did.
You did, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can get into some really high-end resort areas and it's up $45 for some of them. But we're
But
at
anything
$30,
comparable
at
to
$30 comparable to our property at $30, we're at the high end. That's pretty much all I had. Any questions from the board on the mark?
So, going to the, permanent reserve.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that the dollars in the bank now are that 897 number?
Hang on a second, let me get back there. Okay. What were you gonna, give me the question again?
Is it fair to say that in the bank right now, today, is that 897 number
No, in the bank today,
858,
no, it's the 802 that was on the balance sheet.
802?
Right,
What percentage of that is liquid?
liquid.
Couple hundred thousand.
Hang on. I gotta go back to the balance sheet. The percentage of that is absolutely 100% totally liquid. The heck's my balance sheet?
That's the 326 from.
Oh, there we are.
Bank of the
The
San
Bank of
Juan.
the San Juans, 326,000.
So that could be considered working capital.
That could be money that we could take out tomorrow and not suffer any penalty
So
for.
what would the penalties be on the rest?
You'd, on the rest, if you familiar with how CDs
No,
work,
I know, I'm just curious what the number would be.
it depends on the CD. If there's, see, the laddered CDs that are coming up for, the ones that are now coming up for renewal, they're every 6 months, right? Each of the two banks, the First Internet Bank of Indiana and Stearns Bank in Minneapolis, each of those two banks has 8 CD accounts. And those laddered CD accounts are over 2 years, every 6 months. So the earliest ones, which are now coming up for renewal, probably have the lowest interest on them.
Yeah.
So if we cashed one of those out, our interest penalty would only be 0.5%. If we cashed out one of the newer ones, we could lose a lot, we could lose some
But I would
money.
think there'd be an inducement for the bank for us to, they'd be glad to let us free on some of the lower interest rate CDs.
Yeah, you think they're gonna do that?
Do we roll these over every time they mature? Do we just automatically roll them over and do a new CD?
Uh-huh,
Yeah, we started that, 6-7 years ago, I
Yeah.
guess.
yeah.
And so it's a 6-month CD, is that what you're saying?
They're all 2-year CDs now. When we first started with the banks, we bought 8 CDs, 2 for 2 years, 2 for 18 months, 2 for 12 months, and 2 for 6 months.
I got you.
Right? And they were $25,000 a piece. Whatever they were. Yeah. And so the 2-year CD, so that when we started to renew them, 6 months later, the 6-month CD was rolled into a 2-year CD. So now 6 months into the plan, we had 2 years, 18 months, and 12 months. But of course, that's times past. Now they're all 2-year CDs.
And so our numbers vary according to the return on the CDs.
They vary, the numbers, the rate you're talking about?
No, I mean, your numbers from past, we had projected a certain number of income off the CDs and it dropped.
It was projected based on the rates in force at that time. Yeah. And of course, we know the last, year and a half, interest rates have been going up very well. So,
Yes,
John Mills, Unit 202. I'm just curious because I work in finance and I've seen 6-month CDs now they're paying 5%.
yeah, those are promo rates though.
No.
Yeah, I buy CDs for myself, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I work in finance and I'm just saying that these are not promo rates, these are stated rates for 6 months.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, it's gonna be dependent on what they renew at it in the future,
yeah,
but it's not a promo rate, there's no limit on how much you can do.
yeah.
I'm just curious because that number, $3,200 seems extraordinarily low. for
Well,
half
remember,
a
that was
CD.
budgeted 6 months, 8 months ago? 6 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I mean, even then,
And that was
calculating
based on
that,
last year's
that's
numbers.
40 basis points on $500,000.
Yeah. I mean,
That seems extraordinarily low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying that I think there's opportunities to maybe look at different options to get 2% more with FDIC insurance, and it's not a promo rate, it's it's just like any other CD. you know, you can definitely start to make up some of that difference in terms of what was spent on.
We could take a look at that.
Yeah, it's just, you know, something.
Yeah,
that I think
we
is on the
we
daily
welcome
basis.
assistance if you want to help us out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
I mean, when we,
Look at that.
we haven't looked at it in a while. When we looked at it, the internet banks were always giving the best rates.
Yeah, yeah.
And First Internet Bank of Indiana is one of ours, and the other one is Stearns Bank in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanna take a look and feed me what information you find, I'd be glad to hear what you come
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't cut you off there. Plus with, you know, the inverted yield curve that we have right now, you know, it may be more advantageous to go into even shorter term than 2 years because you're actually earning less on 2 years than you are on a year or
Sure.
6 months. So, you know, there's more advantageous things we can do to boost that income on
Yeah.
reserves.
Yeah.
You know, that I think is only gonna help the
Yeah.
HOA long term. And then the other question I had is the FDIC insurance. You know, some of the balances I'm seeing there are over
Yeah.
250,000 on some of these.
Yeah.
Is that accounted for? Have you guys looked at options?
Well, the only one that we're really at risk on is the Bank of the San Juans, because that's 326,000. The other two are
Yeah,
close enough to
255
250 not to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's just something I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said
but I
that's-
think we may be expecting to get some money out of that
Yeah.
Bank of the San Juans account pretty soon.
Well,
Yeah, that's three-
Not you
that-
think.
That Bank of the San Juans is the one that's maturing and is liquid, correct?
That's
That's all.
a money market account.
Yeah, it's-
That's all it is. That's not CDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we left that one liquid for a reason.
Thank you, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem.
Joe,
Any other questions?
Eric asked, what amount could we realize by the sale of 110 and 114?
Well, just off the top of my head, probably $400,000.
Yeah, we probably ought to just do a mark to market because we haven't looked at it lately.
Yeah. But the issue with those, now we're gaining 17,000 a year in rental revenue. The issue with those is one of them is owned by
Rented.
rented by Race.
Mhm.
He's rented by our long-term midnight shift front desk guy. And if we booted him out of there, we'd lose.
And
Yes.
God bless him, he took the shift last night
Last
when
night,
someone
yeah.
called in sick.
Yeah, and I mean, so we would suffer some consequences for getting that money.
If,
And the other one is rented to Boyd Hodges' daughter,
Yeah,
who is about to take over the restaurant
Yes.
operation. So,
They're very valuable to us.
priceless and
there's
in
that.
our,
yeah,
in our
because if you've
world.
read minutes from the Glacier Board meetings, they have approached the subject and they're in discussions about building condos across the highway on their land to support and attract employees.
Employee lodging.
thanks.
Any other questions out there, Gary?
Mary Keys is asking, why not sell the units to them? I assume she means Glacier. Or
To
at
who?
least,
To the
or
renters.
or
maybe.
to the
Maybe they
renters.
can't afford
They
it.
can't.
Yeah.
We can't. They can
Would come
barely
to the
pay their
raise.
rent.
Or at least have them pay HOA fees like the rest of us do. I believe we're charging more than the HOA fees.
Well,
They can't even afford HOA fees. What we're paying them.
I mean, the HOA fees on those units is less than $400 a month,
Yeah, they're paying.
and they're paying,
Yeah.
they're paying 8.
Is
I
that
saw a question
market?
over here. Go ahead.
Diana Dietrich, Unit 848. With the resort fee discussion, at one point, I think maybe it was the last budget meeting, there was some talk about maybe approaching Glacier for a different amount of golf season and non-golf season. Is that a discussion that happened or?
I don't remember that discussion, but I don't know that it's been asked of me.
You know, because the fee
Right.
is so high and, but does it make the sense they have the same fee during the winter time when you don't have access to the golf course?
You still have access to the amenity center.
Yeah, you still have access to the amenities and the golf.
Glacier is not very.
Golf is an upcharge.
Yeah.
When you pay the as a rental guest, when you pay the resort fee, it allows you full access to the pool and fitness, the saunas and steam rooms and all that stuff. It also allows you the opportunity to pay to play golf.
Then you have to
Last
pay
year,
the
I don't
green
know what
fee.
it is this year. Last year it was $135 for a green fee.
It went up,
Did it?
it did.
For guests?
It's now 200.
For guests?
Yes.
200?
That includes your cart fee for 18 holes. It is $200.
Oh,
Okay, so there's no
Gary and I just
possibility
saw
of
this.
oh,
resort fee. Yeah.
I didn't realize that one.
I mean, we've had it, I think we said
Sure
we'd
makes
like to
my
have a discussion. with them,
$30
but I don't think they're gonna.
Card fee look good.
Where is any restaurant revenue?
Any what?
Where's any rent from the restaurant?
They don't pay rent.
What category?
There is none.
There is.
The restaurants, the. Is it 4 or 3? Will this be the 4th restaurant?
I think so.
This will be the 4th restaurant.
It's about
This
to
will be the
fifth.
5th restaurant.
It's about to be.
This will be the 5th restaurant in there, in that space. And in that space, no restaurant of any of them have been able to make money, have been able to show a profit. None. It just hasn't happened. So our deal with the restaurant owners to entice them to come in and set it up and provide the amenity for the owners is you get free rent. They do pay their own utilities. They pay their electricity, they pay their water, and they pay their trash removal. But no rent.
So there's nothing revenue generating that
Nope,
the HOA could put in there?
nope, none.
They usually lose money.
They
can-
lose money.
They can pay.
If
their
we charged them
employees.
rent, they wouldn't even set up shop.
Yeah.
The first restaurant that went in there, Cuckoo's, we did charge them rent. And that didn't go well.
That's why they aren't here for very long.
Yeah.
Um,
Any other questions online, Gary?
Diana, did you have another question?
I had.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah, go
thought you were done.
Well, I was waiting till the end.
No, go ahead.
Under that, with the BHP contract labor, is that just like, is everything billed like at the same labor rate, or is there any like subcategories that you could show? us?
There are categories.
That something that you could share with the owners what the categories are?
Somebody asked for that. Who asked for that?
It may have been, you, yeah.
Yeah. When I
Oh,
asked
we
for
said,
contract,
I thought, didn't you revise that? Take the names
Oh.
off it? You
Yeah,
took- you took-
and actually sent it, was it to John?
I think I have that. I have it
Well,
right
Greg and
here.
Bob, you can probably tell us, what's the hourly rate range for the contractors?
For what?
For the contractors, what's the hourly rate range?
It varies from per person.
Yeah, I know.
Between-
Well, I'm saying from the
25.
low to the high.
It goes from 17 to 30.
Okay, does that answer your question? Goes from 17 to 30 per hour.
We pay them an hourly rate for their services based on the service they provide. And it can range from $17 an hour for a
Lawnmower.
laborer
Right,
to $30 an hour for a skilled laborer.
right.
Okay? We pay them a flat rate. What they pay their people, we don't know.
Oh, I wasn't asking that. I
Yeah,
was just, considering that you see the budget laid out, like maintenance on the lodge, maintenance on Pine Grove, maintenance on this. But then with VHP, we have like one huge goal of money. It'd be interesting to be able to see what percentage is in this rate, what percentage is administration, what percentage.
well, we see that in the monthly billing. It's just not on here.
Is there some way that in the future could be something in this?
That's way too much detail for a financial report. I mean, it's something that when we pay them each. Do we pay them every week or every 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, we cut BHP a check for their services. And there's a report. They bill us and they show us here's what we did, here's what the hours were, here's who did it, so on and so forth. Now it's got names on it. And we try to keep the names private. We don't put people's names out. So that we have that information. You're just not seeing it. And I don't know that it would be appropriate to pass that around. I don't know.
Definitely not with names.
No. So we have that information and we bird dog it. I mean, we're watching it. Yeah.
But it's even the categories, like, what percentage of our money is going to this low level versus what percentage of our money is going to.
I don't see the importance of that. To tell you the truth.
I think in the past week, we saw salaries and we had an idea of how many.
Well, that's
full-time
because they were
employees
our employees.
Because they were here. But now it's kind of hard to compare what we're seeing with BHP versus when we had Tata employees.
And that, those are salaries in that PHP contract
Right.
amount, that's just salaries.
That is salary.
And so anything they do. Except for like snow removal.
Yeah.
The wages we pay for snow removal are not in that category, they're in snow removal. Or if we're paying the wages on the staining.
Yeah,
or,
that's, those are,
go somewhere else.
yeah, what you see in that one lot, that one
It's
account
exactly like what,
that's got 145, that's general building maintenance.
and
That's
that's.
things go
probably-
wrong, they fix it.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
we were able to have a full crew and like Dave Dunn back again, those numbers would be very similar
Right.
with wage increases and, we've seen wage increases at the front desk too. It just had.
You see the amount of money, even the fully burdened for the for the three people that we have, 3.5.
Right,
And then you compare that number to the BHP, it's just like huge. difference.
right,
Because they have a big staff.
they do.
How many BHP people are here every day?
Yeah, but they. 9.
Which is pretty similar to what we had.
How big,
when
I
we
mean,
had the
that's when
staff.
Dave Dunn was running our maintenance department, we had what? 10 or 12
Yeah,
staff?
so-
Yeah, we had a staff of, with Dave, we had, and all his staff, we probably had 12 to 14 people.
Yeah, it was the same when we had Tim.
So
Yeah.
it's the same. You're just seeing it differently. On.
Because
the
we wanted to
financials.
break it out.
Yes.
Um, anything else, Gary?
Yeah, two things. Eric says Scott has it right. The fair market value of these units should be reflected on our book somewhere.
Well, they are.
Yes.
Okay.
Assets.
Well, they are. It's on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Trish Layfield asked, why are the fees so low for rental space?
Well, again, these are two people that by having them here, living on campus
I
and
think
no,
maybe
no, no.
Linda Logan.
Oh, that rental space.
And it's. a
'Cause if we
similar
charge-
reason.
If we charge more, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And if you wanna, and if you wanna take it to the, I mean, hairdresser, I can't comment on that one. But the real estate office, I mean, that's a convenience for the owners. That's why we have them. If an owner wants to sell their unit or wants to market their unit, there's a real estate office right here on site, and it facilitates those transactions on behalf of the owners,
I'd
going
also,
both ways.
I'd also add that for properties to have visibly vacant space continuously brings down the value.
You got that right.
It discourages purchases, renters see
Gotta
vacant space
Look at-
around the
look at
property.
Rainbow Mall.
So it keeps the
awful?
property standards higher to have these spaces occupied. And to do that, we have to have a
and
reasonable rate.
Sotheby's has an office a little ways away. I think their office is in
Hermosa.
Hermosa at Trimble. And if we charge
Don't
too
they
much
have,
more,
don't they have one up north too?
they wouldn't stay, they'd move back to.
They got
yeah,
one up north.
Or
too.
they'd go up there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make a material difference, even if we charged a market rent there. It's not gonna be a game changer by any stretch.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
They have one there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, question for you. The architect's report and the engineer's report on the roof repairs for both our line and the lodge. Had a comment in there that this year we spent roughly $83,000 on snow removal and repairs. But I looked on page 2, so item number 620.
That's the roof, that's the tar roof.
It's
Yeah,
the
you
roof
were asking
repair and
about-
ceiling repairs. So none of that repair damage that was quoted in the engineer's report.
No, that's, those roof and ceiling repairs account is where it's mostly where we repair the inside of a unit because, and it's mostly not for water damage. It's for tar drips from the underlayment that's on the outlying units, shingle, roofing.
And it's
That's-
primarily pine cone.
And is it primarily pine cone?
Okay, almost exclusive.
So over the years, we've had a number of units around the property, I guess mostly pine cone, that have had, where the ice and water shield, which is basically a petroleum product, and it gets hot in the summertime, and it drips, it finds its way down through the tongue and groove ceiling decking and drips into the unit, causing damage, and then we go in and fix it. And the fix is to replace the whole thing, or to not replace it, to put a layer of like a diaper in between, and then another layer of sealing material. That's what that account is for. And the reason it's got no money in it yet is because we don't tend to do those until spring, until summer and fall.
Diane,
I'll make one more comment, Diana, these will get great. Have you thought about possibly selling this space and having the meetings in the restaurant space?
we would have, well, no.
Not with a restaurant operator in there, you
No.
wouldn't be able to do it. The restaurant operator controls the space. When we lease it to them, they control the space.
But you can put it in the contract if you're not charging them any rent. I just thought I would put that. Throw it out, it's special. And we're looking for money.
Nope, we've never thought about doing that. Rick, I mean, you want to comment on? I don't.
No.
No, we
We've
fitted out this space.
Yeah.
We fitted out this space as a conference room because we wanted a conference room, because we didn't want to.
We also,
We didn't want to have to pay Glacier to use their conference.
yeah,
These
we
weren't like
also,
Rooms, we would have to completely remodel these to turn them back into rooms.
we also have rented this room out for several weddings too. So we do get some additional income off this room.
Whenever we need this room for a meeting, it's here. We don't have to ask somebody, we don't have to, make arrangements with somebody else. It's here, it's ours.
Okay, well, thank you, Joe. We'll go ahead and move on to the reports. We'll go through the reports and then we'll take a break. There are nothing for architectural review or rules and regulations. Paige, do you have anything you want to report?
Nope, well, we've, done lodge staining, pine cone staining on exterior, we've, Blooming was here and redid our beds, the lodge. Our planting beds, we're gonna make our way through each area and do some more staining, so look for that. We also did the big rake-a-thon, you might have seen, cleaned up the property.
Rake-a-thon?
Yeah, we called it the rake-a-thon, raked everything, everything, all hands on deck,
Alrighty.
so. So yeah, we're gonna do some deck repairs up in High Point. We're gonna do some window washing. So that's kind of what we have on the calendar for this, just to give you a little insight. So we'll be making our way through all the areas, so. Do some. Repairs and get everything spruced up for the summer, so.
Okay.
Excuse me, Paige, could you translate all that into a list for me
I have a list right here.
and
I will
email
send it
me
to you.
at your convenience?
I will send it right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, then next we'll go to landscape.
So for the landscaping report, I'll go backwards to 2022 quickly. BHP, once they took over, they did a significant amount of pruning, trimming, and loads and loads and loads and loads of limbs and such went up to a property north of here. And that's probably something everyone can see. We can now see straight line through the trees in most places. Late last year, we did a big fire mitigation project. If you live in Pinecone, especially on the east and the north side, we did an unbelievable amount of tree removal. We went up 10% on the limbs at Pinecone. At Gamble, if you're on the west side and the south side, you'll see that we went out to the property line and essentially cleared all of the low story brush and all of the what we call ladder feet. So we've made a lot of progress on fire mitigation. And as years come, we'll keep up with that. We use the same contractor that Glacier uses. They were damn good. And, again, anybody that lives in those areas, I'd be interested to hear your feelings on what it looks like now.
It looks great. Every year I bring my hedge trimmer and my loppers so that I can trim the Gamble Oaks behind my unit. Didn't have to do it this year.
Well, if you really want to, if you have a good memory, just when and eating in the mine shaft, just look out from the mine shaft window out into Pinecone now, and you can actually see the condos. And we have an unlimited supply of wood chips now for all of eternity. Yeah, well, they're up there with an unlimited supply. We had 9 meetings last year. It led to our plan. The plan was reviewed. That was formed the 2023 budget that we're working under now. And we reviewed that at the first meeting of this year. Maintenance this year will be more or less status quo. Everything that we see, trimming and such. Our weed treatment for the spring has been delayed. We had a plan there and again, that plan has been delayed and that'll be a matter of discussion at the next landscaping committee meeting. One of the big issues that we learned last year with the guest speakers is warming in the area, irrigation costs. Joe mentioned that's a big dollar item. So we're really diving deeply into water conservation this year. The BHP is taking a hard look at our sprinklers, doing extensive maintenance. I've been around today and you can just see a lot of the sprinklers being repaired and dug up. We're going to make sure they're working right. We're going to an irrigation schedule every other day instead of every day, which by itself ought to cut the water use in half. The riser, we're adding risers around all of the condos. So when the water is sprayed behind the bushes, it doesn't go behind the bush, it goes out onto the grass. And finally, we're at Gamble Oaks and Pinecone, we are installing a master shutoff that measures water in the ground. So when we have the monsoonal rains, the water will be shut off automatically for the entire complex. And just use Mother Nature rather than water out of the faucet. So again, we'll at the end of this year, we will compare last year's water dollar numbers to this year's water dollar numbers and see how good of a job we've done. Hopefully that'll be something that adds to our budget deficit that we're all worried about. The stonework was canceled. It was canceled because of budgetary constraints. We had 100 tons of river rock being planned to be put in areas and starting to replace grass. We'll take that up next year, hopefully when dollars allow for it. We still will be strategically placing some large boulders. Glacier has offered us a free supply. So places where parking is a problem with people driving onto the grass, parking onto grassy islands. Places where we might want to add a boulder for aesthetic appeal, we'll be doing that. And finally, we did keep in the budget the redo of the ornamental beds at High Point, at Gamble, and in front of the lodge. That's a work in progress, and I look forward to seeing it here in about a month. All of our planting will be native plantings, low water, perennials, simple, low maintenance. So that's the plan.
Thank you, Mark.
You can have that. Thank you.
When's the next meeting? The 6th of June?
6th of June.
June 6th. Okay, I've got 10 till. Let's take a break and come back at 5 minutes after. Go ahead and start back up. We'll go into new business. And Joe wanted to talk about the DirecTV contract renewal.
Oh, am I up already?
I can do the dog park.
No, this is good. This is good. Gary, you want to put that document up on the screen that I sent you this morning? I know I've got it here somewhere, but I'll just speak to that. I had opened that up. It's a Word document.
Yeah.
Single
And I
slide.
had,
Single page.
Which one was that? The renewal?
The one right in the middle, the Word document, right in the middle of the screen right there.
Well, yeah, I changed it to a PDF.
Oh, I don't care, but however you want to do it, okay. All right,
Hang on one second. Okay,
okay. Is that gonna go away? Okay.
yes, I am.
All right, so as most of you know, we get our TV service in your units from DirecTV via Groove Entertainment in Salt Lake City. This agreement is coming, the first 5-year agreement that we've done with Groove is coming to a close this year. It expires, the date's a little fuzzy. We signed the agreement in September of 2018, and service began sometime in December when all the infrastructure was installed and everything was put in place and everything was up and running. So we reached out to Rich Van Patten, the sales manager at Groove Entertainment in Salt Lake, who we've worked with on the first go round. And I've been in contact with him, and we've begun discussions on the possibility of renewing this contract for another 5 years. So the highlights of the new agreement, a number of them, will have the same channels we have now, which is a pretty broad selection, including HBO and Cinemax. I just found out yesterday through Rich that the NFL Sunday Ticket will still be available as an option on DirecTV only for hospitality subscribers like us, hospitals, hotels, restaurants, and so forth. You probably all, if you're a football fan, you've probably all heard that the DirecTV is losing that contract with the NFL, and residential subscribers will only have the choice of subscribing via YouTube. Not so with places like us. Like I said, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, such and such. The deal was struck, and DirecTV will still have Sunday Ticket we'll still get it this fall. There's an early renewal option on this renewal. One of the components of our current contract is Groove put in a significant amount of hardware, the dish antennas, the hardware infrastructure, the switches, and everything else. They were here for several weeks in the fall of 2018 installing all this stuff. We will, at the end of this current contract, will own all that equipment, and we've been paying for it along the way. Our current contract value, our current contract payment is $10,281 a month, or about $30 per household, which you see on your HOA bills. Scroll back up there, Gary. I want to keep that there. Okay. So this early renewal option will be available to us at the end of October. So for a couple of months after, and this will be after the equipment is all paid for, we'll be able to reduce our fee down by about 50%. We'll also have a platinum service plan with this renewal that will basically give us a full warranty throughout the term of the contract. Anything goes wrong, parts, labor, it's all included, and it's pretty darn cheap. It's only like $1 a month per receiver. And so if anything goes wrong with the equipment, we have to call Groove. They'll You know, they'll walk us, you know how it goes, they'll walk you through it on the phone, see if they can get it fixed with our local people. If they have to send somebody down here, they'll send somebody down here and it'll get fixed and it won't cost us anything. So basically a 50% reduction in cost. Our monthly fee will go down to about $15, $16 a month. For basically the same service we have now with the Platinum service plan. And we're off and running. Now, I know some folks have been looking at the possibility of dropping this whole thing and going to streaming services. I have a personal opinion on that. I don't know if the board wants to discuss it, but my personal preference is this is the best deal we're ever gonna get.
Yeah.
And if you have a rental, if your unit is a rental, whether long or short term, or you send guests up here, you know, family members, when you're not here, they walk in, they pick up the remote, they turn on the TV. They don't have to log into a streaming service. They don't have to fiddle with it. So it's all pretty convenient and it's damn cheap.
Yeah, anybody that pays for some cable anywhere else in the world knows this is a smoking deal.
Yeah.
So go ahead and scroll to the last bullet there, Gary. Yeah. So as you can see, the approximate monthly cost per household for the new 5-year deal will be about, like I said, about $15, $16 a month. And we could start that as early as November 1st of this year. I've been working with Groove. I've got to run a few of the items in the new contract past our legal to make sure it's all good. But this is a much easier negotiation because all of the things that we asked for in the first contract, Rich has told me, yeah, we'll get them put into the new one. In the initial proposal, they didn't have all that, but I went through them all, compared it. And so we should be able to get this done well before November.
Good deal. Okay, the next thing.
Are you gonna take any questions?
Yeah.
By the way.
Joe, so what I'm hearing is there's no other contractors, streaming services like YouTube TV or any of the hard like Dish that the board is gonna consider and compare to?
Haven't looked at them. Didn't see the need to. I doubt anybody's gonna get down in that price range.
Well, you all provided a phenomenal streaming service, so you have all this hardware where you don't need it if you're gonna stream, right? So the streaming service.
Well, you mean we provide a good internet service is what you're saying?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not what I said. That's-
You know, anybody who wants to subscribe to a streaming service, I mean, I have Prime and I have Netflix, so I use those once in a while.
I get that, but the way this is set up is we as owners don't have a choice.
You don't.
Right. So I guess that's part of my question. Is if everybody went to a streaming service, they could do it themselves. If they want TV, they have a streaming service.
True enough.
Okay.
The board will make the decision. I'm just telling you what I'm working
just asking a
towards.
question.
Yep.
It's come up before, that question. The next thing on here is dog park. We had an owner who sent in an email through the Talk to Tamaron and asked if we could discuss the possibility of a dog park on property. And the quick, simple answer is we don't have the real estate. Again, there in some of Glacier's board meeting minutes, that's one thing they've discussed is putting in a dog park that would be shared between Glacier and Taco.
Have they said where they might put it?
No, they just talked about it. But they didn't say where it was.
They originally talked about sticking it down there where the driving range is on the far end down there. I don't even know if it's still there.
And then they
But-
talked about it, well, maybe when you're saying driving range, the driving range up there to this property on the corner as you turn in down Glacier.
But this area right up here. That's like across the road from our small practice park.
Where they took down some of the pine trees.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect area. Now they've talked for years about putting stacked condos in there. But I don't know that they ever will. They're building a whole bunch more of them back there.
A dog park would be such a low cost installation that. if
Yeah,
down
you
the
could-
road they
yeah,
would build-
Down the road, they wanted to repurpose it. It's not, yeah.
Well, it's, needless to say, a dog park, and I've had a lot of people ask me about this, it's a problem here. Gary can speak to the fact, that, dogs are a problem, and a dog park would take care of that problem. Should we be more proactive with Glacier and, lean on them and they can lean on us, and if there's interest on both sides, maybe we can work together. It seems to me that, if there's a dog park and maybe just an idea and a privilege of social membership became the dog park, there may be more social members that would join Glacier, and that would be an inducement for Glacier to move forward. But again, somebody's got to start.
I think you're overestimating that eliminating the dog issue.
Well,
People are still gonna walk their dog wherever they want.
Oh, yeah.
But it's.
On and off
it's-
leash,
it's a
right.
Step in the right direction. Right now, it's, sort of like, telling people there's no dump, doing something else with your garbage. You've got to provide an option. And, Gary can always say if there's a dog park, we'll use the dog park, but right now he can't say that.
Is the end of the driving range the only property that we would have that we could possibly use for a dog park?
When you say end of the driving range, what,
Yeah.
That's way over there. I think that.
you're talking about the
We
mountain,
don't-
you're
we
talking
don't
about
own
the
it.
mountain driving.
We don't own it.
We
We don't own the
that.
land.
Plus, that would be terribly inconvenient.
Yeah.
It's-
I don't think we could go in there. We couldn't get through the gates.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Where would you put it?
Well, we
That's
would-
what I'm saying.
we
We
would
we
put it-
don't have the land. We have no land available
It would have to
that
be.
we could use.
It has to be,
Glacier.
it has to be Glacier property, Andy. We don't have,
And the only way they would do it is. if
our
they sell
our
ACOG.
property boundaries are so tight to the
Yeah,
lodge and the
yeah,
complex,
yeah, I
we don't have any land.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out where Glacier might bend a little and give us the room to do that.
I don't think they'd give us, it'd be,
Hmm.
they
Not
would
give
do
us,
it
that's
as
fine.
a joint. If Glacier wanted a dog park and work with Cameron to do a dog park, it might happen. Cameron can't do anything on it.
So the helicopter pad has for years been a
And it's.
unofficial dog park.
Yeah.
I never take my dog.
But it has no fence.
We used to take ours and we will again.
Yes, well, maybe in Texas, I'm a liar.
Okay,
Well,
next
let
thing
me-
on
let
the
me just
agenda.
ask, is
Okay.
it worth something? And I'll do it. Talking to Jim Goodman and seeing if there's, the art of the possible.
You're more than welcome to do it.
We can certainly get an update as to
Yeah.
what they're doing, because people ask about it all the time. I mean, this has come up for the last 5, 6, 7 years. We just don't have the
Yeah.
land.
I'll do it.
I'll do it. You want me to? You taking me again? Yeah, okay, I'll do it.
Okay, John, the board candidate academy.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the other board members know that we did in fact conduct that in the month of April. And had about, I think, all total, maybe about 7 owners participate to some degree or the other. I thought it went pretty well. Have received some feedback as to how it might be improved, and assuming the board continues to be supportive of such a thing, I'm willing to continue to be the lead person on it. So we'll just leave it there.
I think we all feel like it's a very useful tool and provides a lot of good information to owners.
We even had some owners that are not going to be candidates to participate, and that's the general feedback I get, is that, some people say, well, oh, I never knew that. And
Yeah.
so that's been a plus just for general information.
The part with the history of the property is very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, shall I move on?
Yes,
Okay, the next item that I want to talk about is the schedule for the next election, which comes up in October, as you know. And prior to the meeting, I did distribute to each of the board members. Excuse me, my voice is not good today.
September.
Oh, what did I say?
October.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Details.
I know.
September at the annual meeting, to be specific. So sorry about that. And this is a tentative schedule, and the reason I put it out for the board to consider is that there's nothing specific that says this person or this officer or that officer should be doing this, but it's traditionally kind of fallen to the secretary of the board. And just out of that tradition, while I've been secretary, I've kind of made these arrangements and sent out the letters and so on and so forth. I'm presuming that nobody on the board is interested in volunteering to replace me.
Presume correctly.
In this, and so I'm not asking for a vote or not asking, these dates could change a little bit, but I just wanted to give the board an idea of the time frame that this is basically the same time frame we've always used on solicitation of nominations or applications from owners that are interested in serving on the board. And so it just kind of lays it out from the early days of June until the election on September the 8th at the annual meeting. So again, unless somebody's interested in taking this over, I'm happy to do it again and just keep this in mind as a general outline rather than something that's carved in stone. That's all.
Okay, next on the agenda, we'll go into unfinished business and we want to talk about the roofing. First thing that we actually do need to do is, as a board, we need to approve the specifications. We had contracted with an architectural firm here in Durango, SEH, and they came in and evaluated. I don't know how many of you have attended any of those meetings. We've had a couple of meetings and at least twice the architect has come out and spoke and given a lot of information. So for the process for us to begin actually doing something, we have to approve the specifications that the architect came up with. So they're all detailed in this report. So if anyone has a motion,
We're gonna do a motion to accept.
the specifications as
I'll
outlined.
make a motion that we accept the specification as outlined by Allison.
Okay. I will second it. Any
Well,
other discussion?
I might expand that a little bit because her report had more than specifications. It had a review of the existing conditions. So I think that we also need to acknowledge what the existing conditions are at the properties or the clusters and the units to justify the specifications that she made for repair. So I amend that, recommend that we amend that motion to accept her report, including the analysis of existing conditions and the specifications.
Second.
Does the original motion maker agree to the?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll just.
Okay, Dan?
I was out of town when those other meetings were held and I listened to them online. So what I'm trying to understand from you all, over and over again, she explained it very well. I congratulate the board and Mark for all the legwork to hire her and her company. I just thought it was extremely well done. It's clearly why we have issues today is because what wasn't done in the past. So you're not willing to repeat those mistakes. I think that's wonderful. But there was a lot of questions. She said, well, if the board chooses A versus B, and so more insulation, less, ventilation, less, materials, more, less, what are they? So what you're accepting, have all those questions been answered in another document that I didn't quite understand?
No, and we haven't got to that point yet. What we're accepting is what she proposed that we need to do and specifications that would be sent out in a bid package to roofers for repair.
And those specifications were identified in a bid package and we have begun getting the bids back. So there are some open issues that are part of it. For example,
Yeah.
bad insulation. Are we gonna put bad insulation in, or are we gonna use
I mean,
the
the-
ISO board instead of the bad insulation? And there's
Yeah.
some variables.
But you already put out a bid for what I understand,
We
we
did.
listed, right?
Mhm.
So what was the bid based on when all those questions were asked?
everything included. And then,
Are you asking what specifications were the potential roofers given?
Yeah, I mean, in other words, she said you're gonna use metal, you're gonna use asphalt, and you're gonna use that insulation, how much? And she went on and on. So there were a lot of questions that weren't answered at that meeting. I'm trying to find out what, if those questions have been answered. So how did we put out a bid if those questions haven't been answered?
Can I narrow this just a bit?
Yeah.
So first of all, the only thing that we've looked at any level of detail right now is the launch. Right? There's a lot of options to outline clusters, and they will have to be done out into the future sometime. And we're gonna have a lot of conversations on what the owners desire to see have done up, insulation type of roofs, et cetera, hasn't even been touched yet. Now, the lodge, we put out a bid package with a number of different options as specified in Allison's report. We'll be talking about those options today, but we've got numbers on various options. Is that?
Fair way to put it.
okay, so all in favor of accepting the specifications, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, John, carried 7-0. So where we're at now is the next things goes along to what Dan was asking. We're gonna have to decide exactly what it is we want to do, how we're gonna do it, and how we're gonna pay for it. And those are the questions we don't have yet. I mean, the answers
right.
we don't have yet. The bids we've gotten, it looks like the lodge is gonna be somewhere between 750, 850,000. That probably means there's necessarily gonna have to be an assessment of some type. So we need to decide the scope of what we're gonna do. Could we do one side 1 year, another side another year? Could we do one thing? We did identify that 23 of the 25 leaks were on the east side. So
Northeast side.
northeast side. So we take care of that, and that virtually takes care of the problems that we had in the past. Then it gives us more time to work on the details for the others. Do we want to do it all at once? Our resident engineer, Mark, will always talk about there's good, fast, and cheap. And you virtually never get all three, but
You don't
you
get all
strive
three.
for, you
You
strive for
never
2
get
of
all
them.
three.
You know, what we could do right now, we could do good and we can do fast, but that entails throwing money at it. You know, that would be the easiest solution, but you know, not really knowing exactly, it's gonna push the price well over $1 million to do that. You know, we could go with every recommendation that Allison talked about as far as guttering, heat tape, creasing, insulation, all that stuff. But is that what's going to be best for the community? You know, and if that's what the ownership wants, we can do it because they're saying, yes, we agree to pay for this. You know, where we're trying to fall at this point is the best quality we can get for the most reasonable price. And that's, you know, we could also do fast and cheap, but that's, you know, we're not going to get quality work. So we pretty much eliminate that. Things we have to consider are, if we did just do the east side, well, to do that, they're going to have to walk across the west side, take down shingles, and stuff like that. Is that going to materially degrade the west side? You know, if we do the whole thing and then we get some of the extras, the heat tape and stuff like that. Some of the questions that we have to answer that we're having some difficulties getting. How much is that gonna cost in electricity to run these things for 4 to 5 months? Do we need to budget an additional 80 to 100,000 in utility costs for
Yes.
that? You know, then if we're putting, you know, we've had people request that we do what we can to eliminate the icicles. If we do that, then we've got the issue of the water. We can put guttering up, but when we put the guttering up, then where's that water gonna go? If it goes straight down to the parking lot, then we have the issue of ice on the parking lot. If we channel that water into a dedicated drain line, then we get into EPA issues as far as the water. So we have a lot of things that, you know, one thing leads to another, and we don't have all the answers for all this stuff, and we're still trying to gather that information. Some of it, people are not being forthcoming in trying to get it to us. So we're trying to move as quick as we can, but we are running into some roadblocks. We have received, we did send out, was it 4 bid packages?
We did.
We got 3 back. One of them for legal issues had to be dismissed. So at this point, we've only got 2 bid packages back. Is that enough? You guys tell us, you know, these are the things that we're still trying to work through. So we want to move as quick as we can. Again, just throwing money at it, we can do it. No question. If we're going to be a little more frugal with our money, we've got a lot of things to work through that we just don't have answers for at this time. You know, another option might be some type of membrane on that northeast corner, which would prevent the leakage, and that would give us another year to work on this stuff. Is that a viable option? We don't know. How much will it cost? Is 10,000 reasonable? Is 50,000 reasonable for that? You know, we don't know what it costs. You know, we're still trying to work through it. So as far as you guys, anything
couple
that
things
I
to point out.
missed?
Couple things to point out. Allison was pretty clear on one point. The way this building was originally designed, it was not designed with appropriate ventilation, appropriate insulation, and appropriate materials to withstand a winter like we just had. Admitted, we're 24 years into the roof age, something like that. So, you know, we have one chance to really do this right. And unfortunately, that costs money. Number 2, it's going to be extremely disruptive when we do this. So I'm an adamant proponent of tear the Band-Aid off and get it done. We have to get the work done. The roof's failing. She was very clear in her reports that the roof on the lodge is failing and the clusters are beginning to fail. So, you know, we don't have the luxury of time here. We will shut down the rental program when this gets done, because the liability is probably too high.
In the lodge, you mean.
Or wherever. the
Oh,
person-
really?
Well,
When-
yeah, when that's
when we
going
do.
on.
So I don't think it sends a good message for us to shut the rental program down over 2 years. If we're gonna deal with the disruption, let's get it done. The bids we've seen are saying approximately 8 weeks to get the work done. Keep in mind, and the way we put the bid packages out, we said you've got till 10/1 to get it done. So we don't have a huge construction window to work with. You know, we've got to get this started relatively quickly. And that's one of the things that, you know, that we have to wrestle with, and we have to come to terms with. The clusters, by far, High Point's in the worst shape. Pinecone second, right? And Gamble third.
Which
And
happens to
on-
coincide with the
Yeah.
timing of the current roofs. High Point's roof is oldest.
And
Next
it's
pine cone next. week.
pretty much all on the east sides where it's tree line.
Rick?
Yes, and
Is there anything in the bylaws that we have to have at least 3 bids, or can we just go with
There's nothing, there's nothing in the bylaw.
So we don't have to wait for another bid to come in. We can look at the bids we have. Decide which one. we
Yeah,
go with.
These guys all buy the materials from major suppliers. The pricing variance is not that different. A lot of it depends on if there's a middleman. But the bids that we've seen so far are pretty much in line with each other. So I don't think we're gonna see any radical
I don't know if
differences.
we
It
have
comes down to like,
two bids.
couple of other things. One thing for background. I know myself and Mark both asked Tim when he was here specifically, did we have any roof leak issues here in the lodge? He told us both no. That I'm aware of, we did have the one which Joe identified on when he's going through the financials. That guy, the owner did notify Tim that we had a problem. He also had communicated with Gary. Tim did nothing to repair the roof. And so we had that problem again. But to my knowledge, that's the only leak that we had in this building last year. So, the weather that we had this year was a major problem. We, will we face that again? We don't know. I know we've gone into an El Nino pattern. Dan can speak to that more. He's our resident expert on meteorology. Will we have a bad winter again? It may not. We don't know. Yes, Diana.
The bids that you've gotten, the 750 to 850 range, what options did that include? Did that, when you were talking about the heat and pay?
Heat tape, guttering.
so it's something
Insulation.
called a heat edge. Something called a heat edge is what we think is the best product we should have. It includes I forget what they call it, but a decking that has a foam layer on it, an iso foam on it. So that we can solve for the insulation. If we do that, I don't think we need the bad insulation. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Mark.
Well, I think they're unrelated. The heat edge and the insulation are unrelated. You could
No,
go
I'm talking about the decking, the iso decking.
I don't think we have, are we planning on ISO decking here? Is that in?
That's what's
It's
in the
in the
bids.
bids.
That's what's in the bids.
So that.
And that also includes guttering. It includes heat,
Ventilation.
what do you call it? Heat lines in the gutters,
Ventilation.
ventilation. Yes, it does include some ventilation.
But let me just reiterate what Rick said. There's just a lot of loose ends that we don't know right now. And that troubles me. As the architect says, we'll be taking with the hot edge, we'd be taking the problem from the top and bringing it down to the bottom. And we really don't have that resolved yet. One of the worries that I've got and this has been expressed by a number of people, including the architect, and on the east side of the lodge. When we pull back the old roof, we have no idea what we're gonna find. And that's why I'm an incrementalist and Scott's not. And I tend to think it'd be good to peel back incrementally to see what we've got for problems. What happens if we pull the east side? We know the sheathing, a lot of the sheathing's gonna be replaced. That's gonna start building on the cost estimate. What happens if we have structural problems? It's been leaking a long time. How is that gonna delay the project? If we just peel the whole thing back and go into it, as I'll call it in my business, ram and cram. What happens if we ram and cram and run into a bunch of problems? And the 8 weeks turns into 12 weeks, 14 weeks, and all of a sudden the snow starts to fall.
It's like any remodel.
Yeah.
We
No, it is.
started, open the cavity, you're not
And
gonna
that's why-
know what you can find.
And that's why, as a board, we've got to be perspective and try to figure out what our risks are going to be and make judgments on what the risks might be. And again, I'm a Murphy's Law guy. I'm gonna go to the negative and think that there could be risks that are going to be scary. I think that we need to go incrementally. I know it's not palatable to do it over a period of 2 years. But, and I have also talked to what was his name, Ross. And he agrees, you don't want to bring shingles down onto the west side or you can beat them all up. He said the better option would be to do the north side. That way you'd minimize disruption to the lodge, maybe even be able to get away with having all of the work done on the far north end of the lodge with the dumpsters and such, so it's not as much disruption, maybe keep the rental program in place. Cut the bill in half. Do everything that we want to do, but cut the bill in half, and we can pay for it with money that we've got. We will replace that money when we work on the broader finance problem with all the lodge, with everything that's out there. But in the meantime, we can pay, we can do the north side, get that done. We can do all of the specs on the north side, maybe install the hot edge, but not turn it on until we figure out where we're going to put the water. You know, can we route the water around the north side of the building and run down the cliffs rather than having go down the parking lot? Don't know the answer to that one yet.
Some of the other considerations regarding financing and also the rental program, you know, we have to consider, is it fair to the people who are in the rental program to cancel reservations that have already been made? What impact is that going to have on the reputation of Tamara? Financing, Scott has been talking with a banker about a revolving line of credit against the property. You know, we have that. Special assessments. If we do have a special assessment, at the point where we announce that and decide on that, we are obligated to give owners 30 days to comment and ask questions on that. So there's another 30-day time period that's built in before we can do anything. If we go that route, do we do a combination of those? This building, if we had to, we could pay for out of reserves. That's really not an option. But if we had to, you know, it could be done. There's never been any discussion of that.
Assuming there are no hidden costs once we start
Yeah,
peeling
assuming-
it back.
And that's why I'd like to know what it looks like on half of it.
Yeah.
So we can plan the second
Yeah.
half. But
You know, and probably the sweet spot is some combination of a couple of those. So those are, you know, a lot, all of this stuff is what we're trying to work through at this point to arrive to a decision of, okay, we're going this way, we're going to do it, you know, this way, this is how we're going to pay for it.
And in that, and there's a process, what you just described is the process. And in that process, we need information coming this way too, because the lodge is not the end all. We've got 3 other clusters that we've got to deal with. It's going to be dealt with not tomorrow, but it's going to be dealt with over the next number of years. So it would be good to have a plan in place so everyone has certainty of what exists over the next number of years. And we don't know what is yet. We need to get feedback from you, what you would like to see what it is. I have a vision, and today's not the day to talk about it, but I think that there's a way that we could spread costs out as a community. So it was softer and everything, rather than bang, and let's not hide the bad word here. There's gonna be a special assessment.
It's gotta be an assessment.
Yes, you know, we're not like Janet Yellen. We cannot turn on the printing press and make more dollars. Dollars here come from one place and one place only, and that's from owners. I'll put it bluntly, but that's the way it is. Now, how can we plan it and do it for owners that works the best?
Part of the logic behind the financing is to maybe give more time to pay back the assessments. I mean, we've done just some, you know, back of the napkin math. You know, we didn't budget for this year, right? So if we're taking anything out, we're taking it out of reserves. So if we take, you know, a couple $100,000 out of reserves and have to assess for the remaining to get the lodge done, it's probably going to be $4 or $5 grand I know. A lot of owners won't have a problem with that. Some owners will have a problem. So, you know, do we give them time? If we give them time, we still got to pay the contract. So we're gonna have to come up with funds.
Per unit, not
Per
per
unit.
owner.
I'm sorry, per unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then comes the clusters.
Yeah.
And that's rough mapping. He said cocktail napkin brainstorming, that's, I would add it in pencil.
But we don't have a bid, we have
Yeah.
zero knowledge of what it's gonna cost to do the clusters, and a lot of it's gonna depend on what we want. And this is where we need feedback. The clusters we can do over simple with bang. Water shield roof, cheapest way to go, with an asphalt shingle. Metal roofs are more expensive. I haven't talked to a person yet that doesn't say they like the looks of metal roofs, but they're more expensive. Then there's insulation. We have no insulation out. Well, I think High Point has a little bit, but down in Gamblin Pond, we have zero insulation on our roofs. It's not cheap.
Which also brings up your electric bills and your gas bills to have no insulation. You're losing a lot of heat in the winter through your roofs. And so this project, not only is it time and it's necessary, but the decisions we're making on the best approach would be what's best for the property and would be improvements to current state, not just due to the age of the roof, but to the materials.
I had long discussions with Dave Dunn back when about how these roofs were designed. And his theory was, and this, you know, Dave, he's tuned into a lot of this stuff. The whole reason the roofs in the outlying areas were built the way they were was to allow the heat to go up through the roof and melt the snow.
That's absolutely right. And
Yeah.
that was 1973. And gas then was what, probably about $2 a thousand.
And congratulations, they accomplished that.
2023, and gas is no longer $2 a thousand, and electricity is no longer a nickel a kilowatt hour,
Yeah.
and life is different. So again, people need to think about this and what do they want? The other thing, though, that's been brought to my attention, and this is an easy calculation, get a good engineer to do it, but the roofs were designed to melt. Where the structure is designed to take the load of snow that wouldn't melt. You don't know the answer to that, and something
Good question.
would have to know the answer to that before we proceeded. But you were correct. It was designed to melt before. It was designed to use our heat that we paid for to go out under the roofs to melt the snow. Now we're talking about something that's more efficient, especially at the lodges, not taking the heat to melt the roofs, but to bring more efficient heat source to the edge of the roof.
We've learned a lot. We're learning more. I think we're talking to all the right people. And we're working really, really hard. We don't have immediate answers today.
And it will necessarily require some special board meetings to determine all this stuff. So we're gonna try and keep the ownership informed as much as we can. As we go along. You know, there's nothing we're holding back on it, and we're trying to be as forthcoming
What would
with
like,
everything that we know.
would like to have a number of regular informal meetings, and we had one a month ago.
Yep,
About,
we had one a month
I call them
here.
your 9 o'clock meetings in the morning where we can just discuss this because we're fire hosing it right now. Maybe in another week or so, Stacy and Scott and I were talking about having another meeting, 9 o'clock type of coffee meeting. And just have a number of them over the next few weeks. We need to hear back from the owners, folks who's opening their wallets. What it is you desire, because there's options out there. Just take the roofs on this building. We have the choice of 2 grades of asphalt shingles. Maybe we should step up. Why asphalt shingles on this building? Because of snow shedding in the front of the building. What happened to Purgatory this last year? Asphalt holds the snow better. But that's it. But we have 2 different grades. One's about what, $150,000 more all up than the other. It's purely an aesthetic. You want a forest textured looking roof or a cheaper roof that will service as well, but it won't look quite as good. What does Glacier want to have on their end of the road? That's another loose ends. We haven't talked to Glacier yet about how we tie in what's over the fitness center versus what's over the rest of the lodge. Certainly architecturally, you want it all to look uniform in Glacier.
Got questions?
Yeah, there's actually there are a couple of questions that came up a little earlier that we can go through, but Ron Hyman says a Band-Aid approach is never the cheapest or wisest answer.
Then we agree 100%.
Yeah. we're
Yeah,
not-
please not piecemeal roof replacement of the lodge, so will be much more expensive. Eric says you cannot run the reserves to a nominal level. You'll be in violation of board policy and Kiowa.
Yeah.
We understand that.
Mhm.
Okay, and Heather Dawson has written, with the time constraints, this may not be possible, but from a rental perspective, it would be great if a start date was after August 15th. That would give rental owners the bulk of their summer income. July is the busiest month of the year, and it would be impossible to move guests during the 4th of July week, where the whole town is sold out.
Can I go back to one thing that Rick mentioned? There is a little Band-Aid approach, and you talked to Ross about this too, and on that east side, you could put a water shield overlay. And that would allow fast, cheap, good. Well, it's fast and cheap, but boy, it ain't good. But that's always the three legs of the stool that you have to deal with. And it can be done. It will prevent leaks from that area next winter. It'll allow us to plan this and start a program next year in March, where we could get through it before the big tourist season starts.
And maybe not be so limited as to bids that
But
we
it
take.
is not good. I'll understand, but it will probably work okay. But
I think you have to keep in mind is these materials are not gonna get cheaper.
Yeah.
And you wait, you get to mid-July, August, when the hurricanes start hitting, we're gonna see a jack in all these materials. And
Well, that's why. I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
the longer we wait, the more expensive this project's gonna be. The more we stage it, the more expensive this project's gonna be. Not, there's not a pretty message here, and I get it.
No, as I said, well, we've got to choose the best bad decision.
Yeah.
The timing is compressed, and compressed timing is not going to have fast, cheap, good. You can't have all three.
Yeah.
People are getting tired of me saying it, but I'll keep saying it.
I was in one, I'm in one of the Boston units and stuff before, and, did have some leaks in my upper windows that was splashing down. And so that there were leaks on that side. And the crew that came in and did their work, they have a pretty hard. And that's why we ended up with shoes and parking. So I'm a little concerned that, that work that's done is complementing what's on the west side. So, I mean, to me, that's a concern. We start trying to do just part of it here that.
No, that's why we need to get the heat, the heat shield in place and make sure it's done right and have the guttering and get the water off. I mean, unfortunately, you've got to remove those icicles. And we do damage when we do it.
I had the same thing happen at High Point. I was in my unit the day that they were up on my roof, and it was tremendous noise, and then there were shingles on the ground, but Allison in her report said it at High Point, the snow removal, the damage to the shingles was worse because of the age of the roof itself too. So it just, this winter made it all become apparent. It was like the curtains were opened and you could really see that there's a problem.
Okay.
Two other things. This is a reminder to everybody, especially out in the audience, please speak up because they had trouble hearing you, but it'll be recorded hopefully. Heather has also said we may need to consider approaching Glacier about reducing the resort fees during the construction phase. It will be loud, noisy, and messy while trying to relax outside by the pool.
I mean, we can, but they'll say that's not their problem. I mean, we are going to contact them to see if they would want to do their end of the building in conjunction with ours so that it's uniform. It's something we can approach them with. So. Okay, I think we've pretty much covered that one. Okay, the last thing we've got on the agenda is the Budget Advisory Committee. At the last regular meeting of the board, owner Dan Noonan, speaking on behalf of himself and some other owners, asked the board to consider making some changes to the budget development process. The board agreed to make some changes in the process. For example, the board thinks that having additional meetings before the budget meeting in November would be a good idea. Dan also asked that the board create a committee that would make suggestions for such changes. At that time, I had agreed to an ad hoc committee for that purpose, and Dan agreed to be the chairman of the committee. The board expected Dan to get back to the board with a mission statement, something along the lines of what the landscape committee did in 2022. Instead, the board received a document called the Charter for the Finance and Liaison Committee, which goes far beyond a mission statement like the landscape committees. While the board thinks the owners who put together the charter have good intentions, and the charter goes beyond what the board had in mind and asks the board to do something it cannot do. In September 2019, Taco owners passed an amendment to the DCCRs by a vote of 187 to 11. Section 5.2 of the amended DCRs states that the board shall have all the powers, authorities, and duties pursuant to the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act necessary and proper to manage business and affairs of the Taco community. The board sees the charter as an attempt to amend the current DCCRs, and the DCCRs can only be changed by a vote of the owners, like the one that happened in 2019. Even though the board cannot adopt the charter, it does support the creation of a Taco Budget Advisory Committee, which I have the authority to do. The board feels that an advisory committee could be a valuable tool to Taco and is ready to approve the following mission statement. And if John, you want to,
Yeah. So this could be a possible mission statement for this committee. So the mission of the Taco Budget Advisory Committee, an ad hoc committee reporting to the Taco Executive Board, is to provide input to the board regarding the development and presentation of the 2024 annual budget. The board encourages the committee to present its input prior to the Taco owners meeting on September 8th, 2023, but will accept input from the committee up until the budget meeting. The board will take the committee's input into consideration as it prepares the 2024 Taco budget. The board president may, at his or her discretion, ask the committee to address other matters related to the Taco budget.
so at this point, the board is willing to endorse unanimously the mission statement.
Well, I hope they would.
Yes, yes.
So
So-
that I would,
It's where we're at is we feel like there can be and is demonstrated today. You know, there's knowledge and interest out there that can be beneficial to the board, to the ownership. We feel like a committee would be beneficial. What we're proposing or offering is an ad hoc committee where the committee has the opportunity to prove to the ownership their value and the benefit to the board, which would be a future board. And at that time, they may choose to make a different arrangement. So really, that's where we're at. If you know, an ad hoc committee is what we're proposing.
Went back this week and re-listened based upon replies that I received only from you, Rick. No one else on the board provided any feedback for the document that you all requested. Over and over again, as I articulated to you in writing and everyone on the board, who said it and when and what you said. You wanted structure, you want it wrapped up in a nice package. No one at that time said you wanted a vague mission statement. In the document, in the presentation I made, in the presentation Manny made, we talked about creating this communication back and forth. And that's where the liaison component came in. The document in and of itself also states that we have no authority. So when I hear the board that you have an impression that we have given you that we're sidestepping Kiowa, this is strictly an advisory committee, 100% advisory. But it lays out a matrix of what we can do to help, not just the board, but the owners, because we're all realistically one. You're kind of the kingpin because you're the board of directors, but we all have a vested interest. So I'm really not quite sure, because when I sent it out to you by feedback of the membership on the 20th, I received no feedback other than from you, Rick. So I'm not sure what's in there that's a threat. Because obviously that's what you believe it is, that we're trying to usurp something to get in.
Okay,
Yes.
in your document. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So what we tried to provide you was, again, a matrix by where people who are going to volunteer know what they're getting into. You know what we'd like to be able to do. And over and over again, I said, cut it, paste it, add, delete. It didn't happen until today, and it would have been nice to have your letter ahead of time. Like I could view it, understand it, provide it to the membership, get their feedback, and then determine where we should all go.
And as I stated to you in my correspondence back to you, because of some of the emails that were floating around accusing the board of misdeeds and hiding things and stuff like that, we would discuss everything in the sunlight of a board meeting in front of all the owners. I will, in your document, it has, and I quote, "The board of directors may delegate any or all the authorities vested in the board by the association's governing documents for activities to the finance and liaison committee." End quote. We do not have that authority. That authority is only given by the owners.
Okay,
So,
and that's the delete. You have
So-
to delete that paragraph of that sentence or that
Okay.
statement.
The
I
anticipated,
know what I
where
wrote.
we're at right now, where we're at, you have the offer of an ad hoc committee. You have the opportunity to prove to the owners and to the next board the value of what you're proposing. Nobody's saying no. In fact, we're saying a lot of these people are welcoming what you're saying. We're just saying you need and have the opportunity to prove the value. And then they may choose to revisit it from there. You either accept the opportunity to prove it, or you say you don't want to do that.
And I'd like to say there was a lot of conversation going on about the draft that you sent. To email you back directly with my thoughts, I feel isn't appropriate. I feel it's more appropriate for the board to discuss them and then respond. And so I wouldn't have sent you my comments outside of the board. Also, I was told that you were going on your vacation and that now is not the time to extend the conversation, and then that picked up again very recently. And so that explains from my perspective, some of the timing, but know that we were reviewing that and we were in active discussions during that time.
Can I make a comment? Sure. One of the things I said when this was just brought up, and the concern hasn't changed, is that the board's got a legal fiduciary responsibility to represent all of the owners of the association. And the concern is that we're presented something that puts us in a predicament that we're uncomfortable with making a decision because we feel it's not that broad, and then it pisses off the advice of the committee. With that, with this mission statement, I think our intent is to move forward in the spirit of what everyone wants, but step softly. So we know, so we can see what we're getting into along the way. Now, I'm 100%, maybe 200% about more input coming in from us. I personally don't think we need a budget committee. I think we need a communications committee. But that's just me. That is not the board. And certain of us will be talking about that as we move forward. But this allows you to move forward, present the case. There's an election in this summer. Elections have consequences. The next board at its first regular meeting will set out the agenda for the year. Meetings. All of the things we do. There's no reason the next board cannot set out an agenda from the beginning of September through the budgetary process with meetings, interaction with the committee, etc. To me, we can incrementally, again, I'm an incrementalist, move forward and develop, work together, get back and see how this thing works come on November or whenever we vote on the next budget. We can look backwards and see how well it works, learn from our mistakes, learn from our successes. And see where we go from there. But to have anything rigidly structured right up front, where we really don't know what we're getting into, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Again, nobody's saying no. We're just saying we want you to show us the benefit.
Chair, here's the angst that I'm feeling right now. There is it sounds like it's both ways. There's a sentiment someplace that people are out to get each other or position. I don't hold that. You stated to me that it was people in my group. I don't have a group. All right, I've been, as you know, I came to you as an individual in 2021 to advocate for this. So I don't have a group. It just happened to be that, as Joe had stated, that when you raise everybody's dues 8 to 10% in one fell swoop after years and years of not raising them, got people's attention. So you have more people here. I don't like the sentiment of, again, of what I'm feeling right now, that we wanted to do something. We gave you, I thought, what you asked for in detail, because you said over and over again, 5 or 6 of you said over and over, as well as you, Mr. Chair. We wanted structure, structure, structure. That mission statement doesn't have structure, but I get it, because what I'm hearing is it's based upon you're afraid there's a sub agenda. And I don't have a sub agenda. I have the same agenda you do. What's the best decision for people that live here and those that vacation? So that's my thoughts. I'm just unsettled with, it seems like there's an us and them right now. And I don't know how we're going to be successful with an us and a them, but you need to hear from other people besides me.
Hey, Dan, thank you. First of all, like Stacey, we knew you were going on vacation. So it was like, hey, let them go enjoy that awesome vacation. When I first read your email, two things. One, to me, it was an overreach, but that's okay. Back and back, we'll figure out, how to sort this thing out. But also, to me, it was indicated how good you must have been at your job. Because as I read that thing, talk about thorough and detailed. And even though I believe it to be an overreach, it's like, please, that we need and want that input from the community. And I like your comment too, because I can't stand any of that feeling of angst about, we are a community, we gotta figure stuff out. So any input that comes in about the budget, that's awesome. Any input that comes in about the roof, that's awesome. You know, your input today about the CDs, man, that stuff, we need and want that. And you know, maybe today we just kind of hit the reset button and go, okay, how do we get through all of this together? That's kind of where I'm.
Dan?
Dan Tyler, High Point 583. I'm hearing a lot about communication and wanting to have better communication. Would your guys' overview for this committee include an ability for that committee to communicate freely with all owners? To be able to establish that communication better?
You're not stopped today from communicating to all owners.
We are, as
You can talk to anybody in this. Nobody's stopping. You can talk to anybody.
as the committee, would the committee be able to send email to all owners?
And I think we'd have to understand the content of the email.
So any email that was.
I mean,
going to be
based on some of
sent-
the emails I've received from you in the last month. I would want to see the content of the emails.
I'm asking about the committee. That's a separate issue that want to talk about there. I don't think you should conflate those two. This is about the committee right here. And I think a big part of people's interest in wanting to know about the budget was to be able to know exactly what was going on. And that involves a two-way street, communication between owners and the board. That's what we're asking. And I think that was in the charter for the committee. And it's a question that,
Guys, we're not saying the charter in and of itself didn't have good ideas.
okay,
What we're saying is it was very prescriptive and an overreach. We had our legal counsel look at it. They agreed. We felt like simplifying it into a mission statement. And then over the course of the year, working through some of the things that you want to talk to us about. I think what you're going to find is a lot of the budget is, there's not a lot of variables in it. Okay, but you guys don't know that because you haven't been doing it. Joe sits down and does his budget and has been doing it for, I don't even want to age you, but probably 20 years.
Lost count.
And we talk about it every meeting. So to say we're not being transparent on anything, we do this 4 times a year. And you know, having the ownership involved is, as we said in the last board meeting, we welcome it. But that was a 2 or 3 page document. It was very prescriptive, and it even gave angst to our council. They said, there are things in here that you know, she can't endorse. So we simplified it.
so you don't think that the committee should be able to freely send information?
So let me
That's the
answer
question.
that question.
That is my question.
So the person who sends emails to all of our owners is Gary.
Right now, as things.
So
stand.
necessarily, you would have to, if you want to communicate, because you're not going to get a full list of owners' emails. It's not going to happen. Okay, because the only owners that want their emails out there are in the list that's on the website, and we all know that's a subset of the entire ownership, right? So the process would be, and I see no problem with it, you submit the email that you want to send to the owners to Gary. Yeah, he's going to look at it, and he's probably going to run it by the board and say, okay, to send this out, because he does it every email he sends.
Because
So
the
yes.
committee reports to the board. The
So,
committee could report to the board.
You know,
so the answer to your question is yes, you just have to go through the process, that's all.
What I'm kind of sensing too is we're saying yes to what you asked for as far as a committee. You know, we're just saying, show what you can do. But you are, I guess, resisting that in saying, I want it permanent from now on, right now.
Didn't say that. I didn't say that in the meeting that we had last time when we had this discussion. I articulated because we know that the board and or you, depending on what type. Your secretary stated that it was a standing committee, would have to be a board appointment. It wasn't a standing committee, it could be your appointment. So whether the board negates the committee in the long run or the short run, it's all up to you.
So what is the holdup from accepting an ad hoc committee?
Again, I just tried to articulate to you my challenges, and I wanted to hear from others. And we had roughly 60 people that said they supported some type of committee. I'm looking for somebody else to talk and share other than me.
And we support.
Anybody else
the
can
committee.
speak up?
Yeah.
Any comments on there?
Yeah, there's some comments here. Um. It starts here, Mary Keys wrote. Again, the board's lack of communication with owners is a glaring flaw with the owner's proposal of an advisory committee and the Scott's Whedon fee. Mary has also written Scott is violating board rules by interrupting the speaker. Kimberly McKnight has written stop interrupting the speakers. 4 times a year is not enough for an HOA our size. Mary wrote, the board needs to let the speaker finish. We don't interrupt the board speaker. Kimberly McKnight has written, yes, please tell Scott to stop interrupting. By interrupting Dan, you have demonstrated what our concerns as members. We are not heard.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
You're very sharp. You really know what you want to do and you want to add a lot. Why don't you run the board? I mean, your input would be great, I would think. And I'm new, and so I may be out of line here, but I would think it'd be with 2 slots coming available at the next meeting. Why wouldn't you want to run the board?
You're not the first person that has shared that with me. I've spent most of my career being a fire chief and dealing with the fire service, the general public, providing the best service in the interest of those we serve. And I think I was very successful at it. That has a cost. And the cost is that attached to my hip was a pager and a phone. And 24/7, 365, whether I was on vacation or not, I had to be there because ultimately I'm the person in charge. I'm now retired. My wife is retired. My grandkids are growing up. And as just stipulated, I was gone for 25 days. And then 10 more days, I'm gonna be gone for another 25 days out of the country. I have an ownership to myself and I have an ownership to my family and my grandkids and my kids to spend time with them because that's what I want to do, as well as my wife. So while I think I can be successful in being participatory in some of the processes because I have the time, I don't have, I think, the time that I know I would want to give you in this community as a board member. I know what that's like. I've dealt with them since 1977, dealt with boards. I've been on a homeowners committee for 13 years. I can't do stuff half, you know what? I have to be all in. And that's just me. So I don't want to accept a position that I can't fulfill to what I think that level is going to take us.
That's an honest answer. I appreciate it.
But if you ever change your mind.
I'm sorry.
If you ever change your mind.
Oh, I know, and I appreciate that. And as life changes, that may become
And going forward, suggestions that you guys have made as far as stretching out the budget development process and having informational meetings, those are gonna happen. They're the board members that will be continuing on have already started discussing that and making plans for that. So that'll go on forward. The offers out there, if you guys, the people here are welcoming the committee. The offers out there for an ad hoc committee to demonstrate to the ownership the value that you can provide them. And that's really where we're at. We're welcoming a committee. We're just saying, you know, go forward and show what you can do. Yes, maybe.
I think the concern is with the ad hoc committee that it could be a lot of work put in by the committee and a lot of concern and shut down.
Speak up.
Just saying that a lot of work could be put into a committee and being ad hoc, it can be shut down very easily, so I think that's a concern.
Even if it were a standing committee, it'd be the same situation. It
So
could be,
there's
it could be
no-
shut down at any point.
And maybe a good example of that is, I can't tell you how many times we've had a landscape committee. And how many times it's petered out. Mainly because the people on the committee petered out. So, I mean, we did an ad hoc with, with Mark, last year, year before. And it's been active. And we encourage that. We want to see that happen. And we encourage the input on the budget, as we've said multiple times. We're not suggesting or saying anything about not being involved and not hearing from the ownership.
Can I just make?
Just a second, Mark. Go ahead. I thought you were raising your hand. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Could I just mention communications one more time, Dan, that you brought up? We talked about this on the phone, and, I personally think we need a communications committee, not a budget committee, but that's just me.
We have a communications problem.
Now, can I?
That's all I'm saying.
Mary Keith might criticize you, but, suffice it to say that in another board that I serve on, there are many communication tools that are used to stakeholders that we don't use here. Greg and I have been talking, and we're gonna talk to a homeowner here that is a communications professional. We're gonna be working on communications, and maybe there will be a communications committee. We don't know that yet. But I recognize there are communications tools that we don't use. The email, the fact that you can't send out an email to all of the owners through Gary, that's a symptom, okay? And there's good reasons why you can't do that, but there are other tools that are yet to be decided on, and we're gonna be working on it, that can solve those problems. There are communication tools that are used by boards and other companies. You can go to podcasts, there's all different kinds of things that can be had that we don't do here, that we can investigate, and there's no reason we can't do it. And again, a committee with a professional as a head of that committee, they go along. Recognize that communications need improvement. It's my point.
Mr. Chair, here's where I think a next step might be prudent if you and the board are willing to accept this. As an ad hoc chairman of the committee, at this point, I accept the mission statement. Provided that mission statement, and then we'll attach a letter to it, as you all again spoke about at the last meeting, which is you will then send it out to the whole ownership that this is what we approved. This is his mission statement, and I'm looking for volunteers. Who is willing to volunteer? And do you have any questions or concerns about what's coming up and our ability to be successful in the future?
Yeah.
And then let's see what that produces.
Without a doubt, we welcome that.
You have to know what the letter is.
Yeah.
Just like the
Yeah.
landscape committee,
Yeah.
you'll set up a link, and it'll be posted, and it'll be available.
And
all
we
kinds
will,
of
we
news and
will,
Meetings will be
yes,
available.
we'll tell them to contact Paige and Gary. Or they're just, yes, maybe.
I just think that the term budget and liaison committee, I think the point of the liaison aspect was to provide that communication. So I'm pretty sure that's what I understood. I think that's what everybody else thinks, but I just wanted to point that out.
I don't know why budget advisory is.
What,
Budget
Well,
advisory.
kind of what, where a hang up there too was, your original request was for the budget advice, communication for the budget.
In 1920, excuse me.
Yeah.
2021 it was, yes. But in this.
Well,
the letter I
in
gave
last
you,
one.
it clearly said liaison in there. But
So-
I get your point.
Yeah, so, that was that was a sticking point for us. Because you're asking for much more input on the budget, and we recognize that. We're saying, yes, whether there's a committee or not, we're implementing your suggestions. And
But as Dan is saying, and Mandy is saying, the reason you keep hearing the word liaison is it has to do with what Mark said, which is that's all communication.
Yeah.
If you all are saying
And-
something It's another mechanism by which we get it down the food chain.
And we're saying there's a benefit to that when we realize that and we welcome it.
So in your mission statement, how are committee members chosen?
We will see who is interested.
Well, you just suggested we
Yeah,
send a letter.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
You just suggested we send a letter out and ask for volunteer,
right,
which
but
is,
how are they going to be selected?
The chair.
you're gonna be the ad
Yeah.
hoc chair. You
Chair
have that.
selects them.
Well, I mean, do I have it? I mean,
Years.
this is my point, the mission statement,
Yeah.
so it kind of comes to the next step. Is,
Chairs.
it sounds like this is gonna be an ask for approval every step of the way, because nothing is descriptive. It's all in a mission statement, which is about 5 or 6 sentences. So I just want to know if 10 people volunteer, 30 people volunteer, it's too big a committee.
Right.
How do we select them down? Do I select them? Do I give you and then you approve it? What is going to be that mechanism? So we can
I don't think,
provide that in the letter to the membership that we're asking to volunteer.
yeah, I don't think we as the board, and I'm speaking on from my personal opinion. If you get 60 members on that board and you want to manage that, that's
No, I
fine,
don't.
right? I get it. I wouldn't either, but I don't think we're gonna make a selection for you. I mean, we would make a suggestion that it be representative, right? We want to make sure you've got people from the lodge and the clusters and make it representative. But again, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think, and you guys
We will,
speak up
yeah,
if you think I'm wrong. I don't want to get into the, the process of approving individuals to be on this.
we'll approve.
We have.
Yeah,
It's in the.
yeah,
bylaws.
it's in the bylaws. We have to approve the members.
Not
But,
the individuals.
Yes.
yes,
We do? Okay, I
Yes.
stand correct.
but unless somebody's really done something to disqualify themselves, there shouldn't be an issue.
So
Mark,
you have-
how did you pick the
That's where I was going.
people on the
What-
landscape committee?
that I had an opinion there. So what I tried to do is broadly have representation across the community, Pinecone, Campbell, at least one on High Point Lodge. And we reached out to people and had a fairly good showing in the beginning. Now that, and maybe one of my concerns about committees in general is that sort of withered away. But just reach out and try to get a broad representation. I think like landscaping with dollars. You probably should look into getting a representation from maybe each of the 3 ownership categories, being full timers, half timers, and investors, and have all 3 of that representation as well.
Mr. Chair, you have my thought proposal on where we should go next. I'll leave it at that.
Send us your letter. And we'll look at it and then we'll get something sent out. If it's, what we like, it'll be exactly what you send us. And we will ask for volunteers for the committee. I mean, we welcome it.
And Gary, you'll set up a link.
I can put a page on the website the same way as we have a page for the landscape committee.
Mandy,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if it's an issue of semantics, maybe we just switch liaison out for communications, like maybe that kind of clears things up.
It's a
That was
budget advisory.
I think you're just nitpicking wording. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole process, the whole function of the committee is for you guys to come together, make recommendations to the board,
yeah,
which means you're gonna be communicating.
whatever the name
It's
is,
semantics to me.
but we want the process. Yeah, whatever the name is, we want the process.
Can I say one more thing? Communications is broader. The budget's a subset of communication. We got a lot of things we gotta be communicating. And that's why Greg and I are working on the communication problem separately.
I just think the frustration is that you're terming it just budget, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say budget and liaison, or did you only say budget?
At this point, I don't want to hammer.
I'm just,
semantics of it.
but that's my point, is that it seems to have gotten maybe watered down a little bit, maybe that's where. the confusion is.
But what we've stated here is we want the communication
Okay,
several times. We want the communication. That's an important part of it.
We'll get you a letter.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. With that, we are going to go into executive session regarding, we have a couple of contracts that we may be entering into
Negotiating.
negotiating. And so we need to discuss that in executive session. Yes, Brian?
Brian Martinez, 337. Just one quick question.
Sure.
Somebody alluded that 110 being occupied with the future owner of the restaurant. Is that something you can share with us?
Possibly. That, I mean,
That's one of the things we're. talking
That's
about in
one of the
executive
things we're gonna
session.
talk about.
There is somebody interested in taking, you guys
Yeah.
probably saw the moving truck out there yesterday. Their base camp folks, I think, have gone, right? They've left.
They've left.
They've left. So we have a vacant space and we have interested parties in operating something in there. And we believe that, that's an amenity that the owners and the renters enjoy having. So we're
Yeah.
gonna have those discussions.
I mean, because there is also another person that's contacted me that nobody else here knows about. Because I just got the email overnight. So,
We'll be hearing about this shortly.
yeah. Yeah. We want somebody in there because we want that as an amenity for all the owners. We enjoy going there. Yes,
To go way back, in the meeting, there were two, chat entries that, we didn't cover. Eric says, Joe, this is in regard to DirecTV. Says, Joe, this looks pretty good. My fear is DirecTV will be sold and the new buyer will drop Prime channels. Can we cancel if DirecTV is sold?
I saw that note up there and I've already made a note to myself to approach that with Rich Van Plant.
Okay, and Kimberly McKnight wrote this has to do with the elections coming up. Would it be possible to note on the website Board of Directors page, the members' terms?
Does it not say that?
I'm sorry?
Does it not have our terms on the website?
We do not. I
No,
mean, you could do.
Yeah. I don't,
It could be class of 23, class of 24, class of 25.
yep, we can,
You can easily do that.
You can easily do that.
and it looks like there's one new message also. The board did not approve the mission statement.
we,
Because it's Rick's committee.
yeah, we are not going to take a formal vote to approve it, but the board as a whole unanimously endorses the mission statement. It's not something that we vote on.
Okay, and then one other one came in. Kimberly McKnight says we should absolutely charge rent and utilities to anyone that will be moving into the restaurant. This needs to be an additional revenue flow.
Then we
We
won't
would
have
have to do
anybody
it.
in there.
And you won't have a restaurant.
You won't have a
had
restaurant.
that discussion for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think the fact.
Yes, Dave.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, could somebody send me that mission statement?
Yes.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, I think the fact that we had such a turnout, base camp didn't make it, did they? And they're not even getting charged much rent, if anything. It's just not a business that generates the dollars it's not downtown Durango.
I said it before,
It's an amenity.
no restaurant that has been in that space ever has even went back when it was a deli under
GMR.
Glacier and or the old Tamaron that was a cohesive thing. It was a loss leader.
Yeah.
It was there as an amenity for the members and owners and guests. And so it's basically subsidized by not having rent.
When Glacier put stands in, they told us, we know we're gonna lose money, but we are gonna put this in temporarily.
Cuckoo's lost money, Stan's lost money, Sari Brown lost money, and Base Camp lost money.
And the yellow carrot.
Yellow Carrot was Sarah.
So was Sari Brown, yeah. They all lost money.
And there's new competition.
You start charging-
down the road.
You
Yeah.
start charging them rent, they're gonna lose more money. They're gonna leave sooner than any of these have.
Yes, Diana.
How do you know that the owners want to underwrite the restaurant? If you
There was a survey, let me stop you. There was a survey done
How many years ago?
several years ago.
How many units are sold? since
Well,
that
okay,
survey?
good point. But
Why are so many people selling their units?
to make money because
Well,
the
yeah,
market
but
was
also
high.
It's a question of when was the last time you polled the ownership?
And it's been a while.
What was important to them?
Going back to what Stacy said. Would you rather have somebody in there or would you rather have it sitting vacant?
Well, you can have it as a.
We're not.
It doesn't cost,
It
it
costs
does
us
not
anything.
cost us a dime. Because they pay the utilities, they pay the trash pickup, they pay for the water, and they open the doors. We suffer no downside on our budget for having someone in there.
It's the same thing as if it were vacant cost wise, except it's more appealing to renters. It's more appealing to the property as a whole. People are more inclined to buy.
Okay, we were going to executive session. We will come back out of the executive session to adjourn the meeting. And that'll be the sole thing. There will be no further board action taken. So.